The chains bit into the attic door as Eleanor's fingernails tore against the wood, blood smearing across the frame. 3 hours trapped in absolute darkness, her throat raw from screaming. And below, Victor's footsteps paced with the patience of a man who had already won. Then a sound that stopped her heart. A motorcycle engine, roaring closer, cutting through the night like a blade. Heavy boots exploded up the stairs. A voice she'd learned to trust thundered through the door. "Step away from the door, Ellie." She threw herself sideways. The door detonated inward, wood-splintering chains, flying hinges screaming, and Gunner Stone McAllister stood in the wreckage, fury blazing in his eyes. Nobody touches what's mine. Subscribe now. Comment your city below. Watch how a 63-year-old widow and a retired Hells Angels enforcer brought an empire to its knees. Eleanor Chambers pressed her palms flat against the donations table, steadying herself against a wave of exhaustion that had nothing to do with physical tiredness. 63 years old, and some mornings her bones remembered every single one of them. "Mrs. Chambers." She looked up to find young Katie Morrison clutching her 2 children like they might evaporate if she loosened her grip. The girl couldn't be more than 24, and the bruise on her cheekbone, poorly concealed beneath drugstore foundation, told a story Eleanor knew by heart. "The winter coats," Katie whispered. "Someone said you might have some that would fit the kids." Eleanor's chest tightened. She knew that voice, that careful, measured tone that came from learning which words triggered rage and which ones bought temporary peace. "Come with me, sweetheart." She led them toward the back of Pine Ridge Community Shelter, where the good donations waited, the ones she saved for families who needed them most. Katie's little boy, maybe 4 years old, kept glancing toward the door like he expected something terrible to walk through it at any moment. Eleanor had spent 25 years wearing that same expression. "Here." She pulled out a thick red coat, still pristine, of fashion. "Try this one, baby." The boy looked at his mother for permission. Katie nodded, and Eleanor watched the child's face transform as he slipped his arms into sleeves that were warm and whole in his. "It fits," he breathed. "It's yours." Katie's eyes filled with tears. "Mrs. Chambers, I can't. We don't have." "It's a donation," Eleanor cut her off gently. "That means it's free. That means it's yours. No strings." She understood what Katie couldn't say. That accepting help felt like admitting failure. That every kindness came with a price when you lived with a certain kind of man. That trust was a luxury beaten out of you one backhand at a time. "Thank you." Katie's voice cracked. "Thank you so much." Eleanor squeezed her shoulder. "You come back anytime. Anytime at all. You understand me." Katie nodded quickly, gathering her children and moving toward the exit like staying too long might somehow curse her good fortune. Eleanor watched them go, something heavy settling in her stomach. That could have been me. That was me. The shelter's front door swung open with its familiar creak, and Eleanor turned automatically toward the sound. Her breath caught. A man stood in the doorway, and he was enormous. Not just tall, though he was that easily 6'3", but broad, solid built, like someone who'd spent a lifetime using his body as both weapon and shield. Gray hair pulled back in a neat ponytail. A face carved by hard years and harder choices. And eyes, God, those eyes pale blue and sharp enough to cut glass. He wore a leather jacket that creaked softly as he moved, and Eleanor's gaze caught on the patch sewn onto his sleeve. Hells Angels. Her heart should have raced with fear. Instead, something stranger happened. A flicker of curiosity she couldn't quite explain. The man hefted 2 large cardboard boxes like they weighed nothing at all. His voice when he spoke was rough as gravel roads. "Ma'am, where you want these?" Eleanor found her voice. "Right over here. I'm Eleanor. I coordinate the donations." Gunner McAllister. He set the boxes down with surprising care for hands that size. "Most folks call me Stone." "Stone," Eleanor repeated. "That's quite a name." Something that might have been amusement flickered across his weathered face. "Earned it the hard way." She didn't ask how. Some questions answered themselves. "What's in the boxes?" "Winter coats." He opened the first one, revealing neatly folded jackets in various sizes. "Found them at an estate sale over in Helena. Figured folks here could use them more than some vintage shop marking them up 300%. Eleanor lifted one of the coats, thick wool, excellent condition, a designer label she recognized from another life. These are quality pieces. Wouldn't bring anything less. She looked up at him, then really looked, and something shifted in her perception. This man, this massive, intimidating figure with his biker patch and his scarred knuckles, had spent his own money to buy coats for strangers. "Thank you," she said. "Really?" Stone shrugged, but she caught the slight softening around his eyes. "Just trying to balance the scales a bit." The scales. He was quiet for a long moment. "Spent a lot of years taking. Figured it was time to give some back." Before Eleanor could respond, a small voice piped up from behind her. "Mama, look." She turned to find a little girl, maybe 5, with tangled brown hair and enormous eyes pointing at the coat display. The child's mother, a thin woman with hollow cheeks and nervous hands, tugged her daughter back. "Sorry," the mother murmured. No need to apologize." Stone was already moving his heavy boots, surprisingly quiet against the floor. He knelt down, this giant of a man folding himself to child height, and pulled a bright purple coat from the box. "You like purple?" he asked the girl. She nodded shyly. "Me too. Used to have a motorcycle that color back in the day." Called her Violet. He held out the coat. "Think this might fit you." The little girl looked at her mother, who looked at Stone with the wary assessment of someone who'd learned that kindness usually came with conditions. Stone waited. He didn't push, didn't cajole, didn't make the moment awkward. He simply held out the coat and let the woman make her choice. Finally, the mother nodded. Eleanor watched as Stone helped the child into the coat with the same gentle precision she'd seen surgeons use. He checked that the zipper worked smoothly. He made sure the sleeves weren't too long. He showed the little girl the inside pocket, perfect for keeping treasures safe. "What do you think?" he asked. The girl threw her arms around his neck. Stone went completely still for a moment, this hardened man who wore his violence like a second skin, and then slowly, carefully, he hugged her back. "Thank you," the mother whispered, tears streaming down her face. "Thank you so much." Stone just nodded, something raw and unguarded flashing across his features before he rebuilt his walls. Eleanor felt her throat tighten. She knew that look. That desperate hunger for connection, battling against the fear of wanting something too much. She'd worn it herself for years. The morning passed in a rhythm that felt almost comfortable. Stone stayed without being asked, sorting donations and repairing a table that had wobbled for 6 months, while Eleanor pretended she had the budget for maintenance. He helped an elderly veteran carry groceries to his car. He fixed the squeaky hinge on the bathroom door. And through it all, he said almost nothing. "You don't have to stay," Eleanor finally told him during a quiet moment. "I know." "Then why?" Stone considered the question with the same careful attention he'd given everything else that morning. "Feels useful. Haven't felt useful in a while." "What did you do before? I mean, besides?" She gestured vaguely at his jacket. "The club." A ghost of a smile. "Lot of things I'm not proud of. Some things I am." He met her eyes. "Got out about 10 years ago. Restore old motorcycles now. Keeps the hands busy and the head quiet." "That's important, the quiet. You sound like you know." Eleanor's smile turned brittle. "I spent 25 years with a man who made sure there was never any quiet, never any peace." She paused. "I got out too, 5 years ago." Stone's expression didn't change, but something in his posture shifted, a recognition, a solidarity. "Hard thing to do. Hardest thing I've ever done." She laughed without humor. "Walking away from 25 years of marriage, everyone telling me I was being dramatic, that Victor wasn't that bad, that all couples have problems." Victor. The way Stone said the name, flat, careful, made Eleanor's skin prickle. "My ex-husband. He know where you are?" The question hit her like a slap. She'd been so careful. New town, new life, no contact with anyone from before. "I don't think so." Stone nodded slowly. "Good, keep it that way." Before she could ask what he meant, the shelter door opened again and the day's chaos resumed. But Eleanor found herself watching Stone as he worked, this strange, gruff man who'd appeared out of nowhere and somehow made the morning feel lighter. She didn't know yet that he would save her life. She didn't know that he would become the first person in decades she truly trusted. She didn't know that meeting him would set into motion events that would bring 100 Hell's Angels to her doorstep. All she knew was that when Stone raised 2 fingers to his forehead in a casual salute and headed for the door, She felt something she hadn't experienced in years, hope. 3 days later, Eleanor spotted him before he saw her. She just left Peterson's grocery canvas bag, heavy with vegetables she probably wouldn't cook and fruit she definitely would forget to eat, when the rumble of a motorcycle made a return. Stone was climbing off a massive Harley in front of the hardware store, his gray ponytail catching the afternoon sun. Today he wore denim instead of leather, and somehow that made him look more approachable, still dangerous but in a quieter way. "Miss Eleanor." She felt a smile tugging at her mouth despite herself. "Mr. McAllister." "Stone," he corrected. "Stone." She hefted her grocery bag. "Shopping. Parts for the shop." He held up a small paper sack. "Working on a '69 Triumph that's been giving me grief." "That sounds complicated." "Just needs patience. Most broken things do." Something about the way he said it made Eleanor think he wasn't just talking about motorcycles. She nodded toward the bench in front of the hardware store. "I need to rest for a minute. This bag is heavier than I expected." It wasn't a lie, but it wasn't quite the truth either. Stone seemed to understand both. They sat together in comfortable silence for a while, watching Pine Ridge go about its afternoon business. A delivery truck rumbled past. Children on bicycles raced each other down the sidewalk. An elderly couple walked by, arm in arm, nodding greetings. Normal life. Safe life. The kind of life Eleanor had dreamed about for 25 years. "Can I ask you something?" Stone's voice was rough, careful. "Depends on the question." "The club." He tapped his jacket, though today it didn't bear the patch. "It bother you?" Eleanor considered the question seriously. "Should it? Most people, they see the Hell's Angels, they see danger, violence, criminal activity." His jaw tightened. "They're not wrong, not entirely. But not entirely right either." Stone turned to look at her, really look, and Eleanor felt seen in a way that was both uncomfortable and strangely welcome. "I did things I regret," he said quietly. "Hurt people who didn't deserve it. Made choices that still keep me up at night." A pause. "But there was also brotherhood, loyalty, a code, not one the law would recognize, but a code all the same." "What kind of code?" "You don't hurt women, you don't hurt children, you protect your own." His voice hardened. "And when someone breaks those rules, you make sure they never do it again." Eleanor shivered, though the afternoon was warm. "I've seen what happens when there's no one to enforce those rules," she said quietly. "When a man can do whatever he wants to his wife because the law looks the other way, and the church tells her to be more submissive, and her own family says she must have done something to deserve it." Stone's expression went very still. "Your husband, ex-husband, Victor Crane." Even saying the name felt like summoning something dark. 25 years of marriage, 25 years of walking on eggshells, of learning how to bargain, of becoming so small I almost disappeared completely. "He hit you." "Sometimes, but the hitting wasn't the worst part." Eleanor stared at her hands, at the thin scars on her wrists that she usually kept covered. "The worst part was how he made me feel like I deserved it, like every punishment or fight was something I'd earned, like I was so fundamentally broken that no one else could ever possibly want me." She didn't know why she was telling him this. She'd never told anyone the full truth, not her pastor, not her doctor, not even the support group she'd attended for one excruciating session before quitting. But Stone was listening without judgment, without pity, without any of the reactions she'd learned to dread. "He ever find you?" Stone asked. "After you left?" "No, I was careful. New state, new name, legally changed it back to my maiden name. No social media, no contact with anyone from before." She pulled her jacket tighter. "Victor has money, power, connections. If he wanted to find me badly enough, he'd find you." It wasn't a question. "I try not to think about it." Eleanor forced a smile. 5 years of peace. That's more than I ever expected." Stone was quiet for a long moment. "Then I'm at the shop most days. Oak Street can't miss it. If you ever need anything, and I mean anything, you come find me." "Don't call." "I mean it, Eleanor." His blue eyes locked onto hers with an intensity that stole her breath. "Men like your ex, I've known them my whole life. They don't change, they don't give up, and they don't like losing what they think belongs to them. I'm not his property." "No," Stone agreed, "but does he know that The question hung in the air between them, heavy with implications Eleanor didn't want to examine too closely. A car drove past a black SUV with tinted windows and Eleanor's whole body went rigid. Stone noticed immediately. "What? That car!" Her voice came out strangled. "I've seen it before, outside my house, at the grocery store, at the shelter." Stone's expression transformed. The gentle man who'd helped a little girl try on a purple coat disappeared, replaced by something harder, more dangerous. "Same car, every time." "I think so. I can't be sure. Black SUVs all look alike, don't they? Maybe I'm being paranoid. Victor always said I was paranoid, that I imagined things, that I was crazy." "Eleanor." Stone's hand covered hers, warm, solid grounding. "Trust your gut. Your gut kept you alive for 25 years. Don't stop listening to it now." She stared at him, this stranger who somehow understood her better than people she'd known for decades. "What do I do?" "Right now, you go home. You lock your doors. You keep your phone charged." He squeezed her hand once, then released it. "And tomorrow you let me take a look at your security. Locks, windows, all of it." "You don't have to." "I know I don't." Stone stood at his massive frame, blocking the afternoon sun. "But here's the thing about second chances, Miss Eleanor. When you get one, you learn real quick what's worth protecting." He raised two fingers to his forehead in that familiar salute. "I'll see you tomorrow." Eleanor watched him walk to his motorcycle, watched him ride away, and tried to convince herself that the trembling in her hands was just from the cold. 3 weeks later, the routine had become comfortable, and that terrified her. Stone appeared at her door every few days with some excuse, a loose gutter. He'd noticed a cracked window he wanted to check. He never stayed long, never pushed boundaries, never made her feel trapped. But he was there, consistently, reliably there. "You don't have to keep doing this," Eleanor told him one evening as he tightened the hinges on her back door. "Doing what?" "Checking on me, fixing things." She gestured vaguely. "Playing guard dog." Stone straightened tools disappearing into his jacket pockets with practiced ease. "That what you think I'm doing?" "Isn't it?" He considered the question. "Maybe at first. Now," a pause. "Now I just like your company." Eleanor felt heat rise to her cheeks, which was ridiculous. She was 63 years old, far too old for blushing like a schoolgirl. "I make terrible coffee, I've noticed. And I talk too much when I'm nervous." "Also noticed." "So why do you keep coming back?" Stone leaned against her kitchen counter, arms crossed over his broad chest. "You ever meet someone and feel like you've known them your whole life? Like all the years before were just waiting?" Eleanor's heart stuttered. "That's a dangerous thing to say. I'm a dangerous man." He smiled then, and it transformed. His whole face softened, the hard edges lit up those pale blue eyes. "But I'm trying not to be. And being around you," he shook his head, "being around you makes me want to try harder." Before Eleanor could respond, her phone rang. She glanced at the screen. Unknown number. Her blood turned to ice. "Don't answer it," Stone said immediately, but her hand was already moving some masochistic impulse she couldn't control, and then Victor's voice was filling her kitchen like poison gas. "Hello, Eleanor. Did you think I wouldn't find you?" She couldn't breathe, couldn't speak, could only stand frozen while 25 years of conditioning screamed at her to submit, to apologize, to do whatever it took to survive. Stone crossed the room in 2 steps, plucking the phone from her paralyzed fingers. "Listen to me very carefully," he said into the receiver, his voice deadly calm. "You're going to hang up this phone. You're going to forget this number. And you're going to forget you ever knew anyone named Eleanor Chambers." A beat of silence. Then Victor laughed, that horrible, confident laugh Eleanor knew so well. "And who exactly are you to? So the man who's going to end you if you come anywhere near her." "Threats. Really, do you know who I am? What I could do to you?" Stone smiled. Eleanor could hear it in his voice. "My name is Gunnar McAllister. I rode with the hellsangels for 25 years. I've done things that would make your worst nightmares look like children's stories." A pause. "So yes, Victor, I know exactly what you could do. And I'm telling you right now, whatever you're thinking, don't." He ended the call without waiting for a response. Eleanor was shaking so hard her teeth chattered. "He found me. He found me. Oh God, Stone, he found me." "Hey." Strong hands gripped her shoulders, forcing her to focus on his face. Hey, look at me. Eleanor, look at me. She did. His blue eyes were steady, certain, unafraid. He found your phone number, Stone said. That's not the same as finding you. And even if he does, his jaw tightened. I meant what I said. Every word. You can't fight Victor. You don't understand. He has money, lawyers, connections. The police won't help. They never help. Eleanor, Stone's voice softened. I'm not going to the police. She stared at him, not understanding. I still have brothers, men who owe me favors, men who remember the old codes. If Victor Crane wants a war, a cold smile, I'll give him one he'll never forget. The next morning, Eleanor woke to the sound of an engine. Not Stone's motorcycle, something different, heavier, multiple vehicles. She pushed aside her curtains with trembling hands. 3 black SUVs sat parked across the street from her house, and leaning against the middle one, perfectly pressed suit gleaming in the morning light, was Victor Crane. He saw her looking and raised his hand in a casual wave. Eleanor's stomach heaved, her phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Come outside, Eleanor. We need to talk. Don't make me come in. Her hands shook so badly she could barely grip the phone. Another buzz. You have 5 minutes. And then beneath the terror, something else sparked to life. Something she thought Victor had destroyed long ago. Anger. She didn't text back. Instead, she called Stone. He answered on the first ring. Eleanor, he's here. Her voice was steadier than she expected. Victor, he's outside my house right now. A long pause. Then Stone's voice, hard as iron. Lock every door. Stay away from windows. I'm on my way. Stone, there are 3 cars, men with him. You can't... Eleanor, listen to me. She'd never heard him sound like this, utterly controlled, completely deadly. I'm going to make some calls, and then I'm coming for you, and I swear to God nothing is going to happen to you. Do you understand me? Nothing. She closed her eyes. I believe you. Good. Now lock the doors. He hung up and Eleanor did exactly as she was told. Through the window, she could see Victor checking his watch. 4 minutes. 3, 2. Victor started walking toward her house, and in the distance, Eleanor heard something that made her heart soar. The thunder of motorcycle engines. Getting closer, getting much, much closer. Victor heard it too. He stopped, turned, and for the first time since Eleanor had known him, she saw something crack in his perfect composure. Stone's Harley roared around the corner first. Behind him, 2 more. Then 4. Then 8. Within minutes, Eleanor's quiet street was filled with chrome and leather in the deafening roar of engines. And at the center of it all stood Stone, climbing off his bike and walking toward Victor with the unhurried confidence of a man who'd spent a lifetime learning exactly how dangerous he could be. Victor Crane, Stone said, his voice carrying clearly over the idling engines. I believe we spoke on the phone. Victor's men had emerged from their SUVs, hands moving toward weapons. Stone didn't even glance at them. Tell your boys to stand down, he said calmly. Right now, this is just a conversation. But if anyone pulls a piece, it becomes something else, something you don't want. Victor's jaw worked. He assessed the situation, the dozen bikers, the potential for violence, the very real possibility that his expensive suit was about to get very, very dirty. This isn't over, he said finally. No, Stone agreed. It isn't. But here's how it's going to go. You're going to get back in your fancy car. You're going to drive back to wherever you came from, and you're going to leave Eleanor alone. She's my wife, ex-wife, and you don't own her anymore. Victor smiled, that terrible, confident smile that Eleanor remembered from countless nightmares. Everyone has a price, Mr. McAllister. Even you. Stone stepped close enough that his breath must have fogged Victor's designer glasses. I've killed men for less than what you did to her, he said quietly. The only reason you are still breathing is because Eleanor wouldn't want blood on my hands. A pause. But you push me, Victor. You push me, and I'll forget that. For a long moment, neither man moved. Then Victor stepped back, straightening his tie, with hands that weren't quite steady. We'll continue this conversation later. No, Stone's voice was final. We won't. Victor climbed back into his SUV. His men followed. The 3 vehicles pulled away slowly, deliberately, a retreat, not a surrender. Stone watched them go, then turned and walked toward Eleanor's house. She opened the door before he reached it, and then she was in his arms, shaking so hard she could barely stand. "It's okay," he murmured into her hair. "You're okay. He's gone. He'll come back. Probably. What do we do?" Stone pulled back, cupping her face in his rough hands. His eyes were steady, certain, filled with something that looked almost like tenderness. "We make sure he regrets it." The bikers gathered in Eleanor's living room, a dozen hardened men who looked wildly out of place among her floral curtains and ceramic cat collection. They introduced themselves one by one: Jimmy, a massive bald man with tattoos climbing his neck; Carlos, lean and watchful with a scar across his cheek; Big Mike, who wasn't particularly big, but had earned the name for reasons no one would explain. "So this is her," Jimmy said, studying Eleanor with surprisingly kind eyes. "The one Stone's been going on about." "I haven't been going on. You called me 4 times last week," Jimmy interrupted. "You haven't called me 4 times in 10 years. Stone's jaw tightened, but Eleanor saw the tips of his ears go red. "Listen," Carlos said, getting down to business. "This guy, this Victor, what's his deal? Stone gave us the basics, but I want to hear it from you." Eleanor swallowed hard. "What do you want to know?" "Everything." So she told them. 25 years of marriage condensed into 20 minutes of horror. The isolation, the control, the violence that started subtle and grew until she couldn't recognize her own face in the mirror. The time he broke her arm and told the ER she'd fallen downstairs. The time he choked her until she saw stars and then made her apologize for making him angry. By the time she finished, several of the men were staring at the floor with clenched fists. "Jesus Christ," Big Mike muttered. "And the cops," Carlos asked, "did nothing? Victor's cousin is the sheriff in our old county. His college roommate is a district attorney. His golf buddy is a judge." Eleanor laughed bitterly. "The system was never going to save me." Jimmy cracked his knuckles. "Good thing we don't care about the system." "What does that mean?" The men exchanged glances. Stone stepped forward. "Here's the situation. Victor Crane thinks he's untouchable. He thinks his money and his connections put him above consequences. We're going to show him he's wrong." "How?" "By making it very, very expensive for him to come after you." Stone's smile was cold. "Jimmy knows people who know people. We're going to find out everything about Victor's business, every shady deal, every bribed official, every skeleton in every closet. And then we're going to make sure that coming near you means losing everything he cares about." Eleanor stared at him. "You'd do that, all of you." "Sweetheart," Jimmy said, "I've known Stone for 30 years. He's never asked me for anything. Not once." He jerked his thumb toward the leather-clad men filling her living room. "Every single one of us would walk through fire for him. And if he says you're worth protecting," a shrug, "then that's good enough for us." Eleanor felt tears sliding down her cheeks. She couldn't remember the last time anyone had stood up for her. "Why?" she whispered. Stone crossed to her, taking her hands in his. "Because you matter," he said simply. "Because you survived something that would have broken most people. Because you got out, you rebuilt, and you spend your days helping others do the same." He squeezed her fingers. "Because you're the best person I've ever known, Eleanor Chambers. And I'll be damned if I let anyone hurt you again." The room was silent except for Eleanor's quiet sobs. Finally, Big Mike cleared his throat. "So we doing this, or what?" Jimmy grinned. "Oh, we're doing this." "Then let's get to work." 1 week later, the information came faster than Eleanor had expected. Victor Crane, it turned out, was not as clean as he appeared. Construction contracts won through bribes. Building inspections passed with cash-filled envelopes. Environmental violations buried under mountains of paperwork. A secretary who'd signed an NDA after Victor got a little too handsy at a Christmas party. "This is enough to destroy him," Eleanor said, staring at the files spread across her kitchen table. "Why hasn't anyone done it before?" "Because he's careful," Stone replied. "Because he pays people to be afraid of him. Because the people who should have stopped him are the same people profiting off his crimes." "So what do? We send copies to every newspaper, every TV station, every politician who's not in his pocket." Carlos tapped one of the files. "Some of this stuff, it's not just career-ending. It's prison-worthy." Eleanor shook her head slowly. "He'll know it was me." Probably. He'll come after me. Definitely. Stone met her eyes. That's why we're not just going to release the information. We're going to make sure he knows that if anything happens to you, anything at all, there are about 100 men ready to tear his world apart. You can't fight the police. You can't fight lawyers and judges. Jimmy laughed a harsh, humorless sound. Sweetheart, you'd be surprised what a bunch of mean old bikers can do when properly motivated. Eleanor wanted to argue, but she remembered the look on Victor's face when those motorcycles had rounded the corner. That flicker of fear beneath the arrogance. Maybe, just maybe, this could work. Okay, she said. What do you need me to do? Stone smiled a real smile, this time warm and proud. Just keep being you. We'll handle the rest. Damn. 4 days later, Eleanor was washing dishes when she heard the front door open. She froze. Stone had a key, but he always knocked first. Boys. Footsteps in the hallway, heavy, deliberate. Hello, Eleanor. Victor stepped into her kitchen, and the plate slipped from her fingers, shattering against the floor. He looked immaculate, as always, tailored suit, perfect hair, that predator smile she knew so well. Behind him, 2 men she didn't recognize flanked the doorway. You've been busy, Victor said conversationally, gathering information, making plans. Did you really think I wouldn't find out? Eleanor's hand closed around a knife from the drying rack. Get out of my house. Your house, he laughed. Everything you have I gave you. Everything you are I made you. And now, he stepped closer. You think you can turn that against me? Stay back. Or what, you'll stab me. Another step. We both know you don't have the nerve, Eleanor. You never did. You're weak. Pathetic. A scared little woman who needs a man to protect her. She's got one. The voice came from behind her. Eleanor spun to find Stone climbing through the kitchen window, his massive frame somehow fitting through the narrow opening. Victor's smile faltered. How? Security system. Stone brushed glass from his leather jacket. Got an alert the second your boys picked the lock. The 2 men behind Victor moved forward. Stone didn't even glance at them. Jimmy, he called. The front door slammed open. Jimmy appeared, then Carlos, then Big Mike, then more, so many men filling Eleanor's small house that she lost count. Victor's face went pale. This isn't, you can't what? Stone walked toward him, slowly, deliberately. Protect the woman you tortured for 25 years. Show you what it feels like to be outnumbered and afraid. He stopped inches from Victor's face. Can't make you understand that you're not untouchable anymore. Victor's men had their hands raised, surrounded by bikers who looked ready for violence. Whatever she told you, Victor said quickly, she's lying, she's crazy. She always was. I was trying to help her. Help her. Stone's voice was flat. By breaking her arm, by choking her, by locking her in a room for days because she didn't cook dinner right. She exaggerates. Stone's hand shot out, grabbing Victor by the throat and slamming him against the refrigerator. I have the hospital records, he said quietly. I have the 911 calls you made her cancel. I have statements from neighbors who heard her screaming. His grip tightened. So please, tell me again how she's lying. Victor's face was turning purple. Stone. Eleanor's voice was soft. Stone let him go. For a long moment, nothing happened. Then slowly Stone released his grip. Victor collapsed against the refrigerator, gasping. You're going to leave, Eleanor said, surprised by how steady her voice was. You're going to go back to your life and you're going to forget you ever knew me. And if you don't, she nodded toward the men filling her kitchen. They'll make sure you regret it. Victor stared at her like he'd never seen her before. You think you've won, he rasped. You think this is over, but I promise you, Eleanor, I promise you, this isn't finished. Yes, Stone said, it is. He gestured and the bikers parted to create a path to the door. Victor straightened his jacket with shaking hands. His eyes met Eleanor's one last time, fury and hate, and something that might have been fear. Then he turned and walked out, his men following close behind. Eleanor didn't breathe until she heard the engine start, heard the vehicles pull away. Then her legs gave out. Stone caught her before she hit the floor, lowering them both to the kitchen tiles, pulling her against his chest. It's okay, he murmured. It's okay, he's gone, you're safe. He'll come back. She was crying now, great shuddering sobs she couldn't control. He always comes back. He never stops. He never ever stops. Hey, Stone tilted her chin up, forcing her to meet his eyes. Listen to me. I don't care if I have to spend the rest of my life watching that door. I don't care if I have to call in every favor I'm owed from every man I've ever ridden with. Victor Crane will never touch you again. Do you hear me? Never. How can you promise that? Because I love you, Eleanor Chambers. The words hung in the air between them, unexpected and terrifying, and somehow exactly right. What? I love you. Stone's voice was rough with emotion. I've loved you since that first day at the shelter when you looked at my patch and saw a person instead of a monster. I love that you're kind, even after everything the world did to try to make you cruel. I love that you still hope, still trust, still care about everyone except yourself. Eleanor stared at him, this gruff, dangerous man who'd somehow become her whole world. You barely know me. I know enough. He brushed tears from her cheeks with gentle fingers. I know that when you laugh, really laugh, your whole face lights up. I know that you hum when you sort donations and that you always save the best coats for the families who need them most. I know that you've been hurt worse than anyone deserves to be hurt, and you still have more love in your heart than most people could imagine. Stone, you don't have to say it back. I don't expect anything. He exhaled heavily. I needed you to know in case something happens, in case Victor tries something, and I needed you to know that you matter, that someone sees you, that someone, Eleanor kissed him. It was clumsy and desperate and tear-stained, and it was the best kiss of her entire life. When they finally broke apart, Stone was staring at her like she'd given him something precious. I love you too, she whispered. God help me, but I do. From somewhere in the living room, Jimmy's voice rang out. About damn time! Laughter erupted, and Eleanor found herself joining in, laughing and crying, and holding on to Stone like he was the only solid thing in a world that had suddenly shifted on its axis. She didn't know what tomorrow would bring. She didn't know if Victor was really gone. But for the first time in longer than she could remember, Eleanor Chambers felt something she'd almost forgotten was possible. She felt hope. The kiss still burned on Eleanor's lips 3 days later. She stood at the shelter's donation table, folding the same shirt for the fourth time, her mind anywhere but on the task at hand. Stone had called twice that morning. Jimmy had driven past her house at least 3 times. The bikers were watching, protecting, surrounding her with a wall of leather and chrome she still couldn't quite believe was real. You're going to wear a hole in that fabric. Eleanor jumped. Ruth Henderson stood behind her, arms crossed, eyebrows raised in that knowing way that made her the most dangerous gossip in Pine Ridge. I'm fine. Honey, you've been staring at that shirt like it holds the secrets of the universe. Ruth moved closer, lowering her voice. Word around town is you've got yourself a biker boyfriend. We're not, Gunnar McAllister. Ruth whistled low. That man's got a reputation, Eleanor, the kind that follows you across state lines. He's a good man. I'm not saying he isn't. I'm saying be careful. Ruth's expression softened. You've been through enough. I just don't want to see you hurt again. Eleanor set down the shirt, meeting her friend's eyes. Ruth, for the first time in 30 years, I feel safe. Actually safe. Not pretending, not hoping, not waiting for the other shoe to drop. Her voice cracked. He looks at me like I matter. Like I'm worth protecting. Do you know how long it's been since anyone looked at me like that? Ruth pulled her into a hug. Oh, sweetheart. I know it's crazy. I know it's fast. But the shelter door banged open. Both women spun toward the sound. A young man stood in the doorway, barely 20, with a nervous energy that set Eleanor's teeth on edge. Mrs. Chambers, yes? Got a delivery for you. He held out an envelope. Guy paid me $50 to bring this here. Said it was important. Eleanor's blood turned to ice. What guy? Older dude. Nice suit. Drove a black car. The kid shrugged. He said you'd know who it was from. Ruth's hand closed around Eleanor's arm. Don't take it. But Eleanor was already reaching, already pulling the envelope from the boy's grasp. Her fingers trembled as she tore it open. Inside was a single photograph. Eleanor. Stone. Kissing in her kitchen, framed perfectly through her window. On the back, Victor's handwriting. Did you really think I left the room tilted? Eleanor grabbed the table for support. Eleanor, Ruth's voice came from far away. Eleanor, what is it? You're white as a sheet. She couldn't speak, couldn't breathe. Victor had been watching. He'd been right there outside her window, close enough to touch, and she hadn't known. He could have killed her, could have broken in, could have done anything, and he wanted her to know it. I need to call Stone. Her hands shook so badly she could barely dial. 1 ring, 2. Eleanor. He was here. The words tumbled out. Victor, he was outside my house. He took pictures. Stone, he was watching us. Where are you right now? The shelter. Stay there, don't move. I'm coming. The line went dead. Eleanor stared at the photograph, at her own face captured in a moment of joy, and felt something inside her crack. He would never stop. No matter how many bikers surrounded her, no matter how many threats Stone made, Victor would never ever stop. Because this wasn't about love. It never had been. This was about control, about ownership, about proving that Eleanor Chambers belonged to him and always would. Ruth was saying something, but Eleanor couldn't hear her over the roaring in her ears. The shelter seemed to shrink around her walls, closing in air, growing thick and poisonous. She was trapped. Again. Still. Always. The roar of a motorcycle cut through her spiral. Stone burst through the door, seconds later, his face tight with controlled fury. Show me. Eleanor handed him the photograph. She watched his expression shift, confusion, recognition, rage building like a storm behind his eyes. He was at your house, while we were inside. Yes. And you didn't see anything, hear anything? Nothing. Her voice broke. Stone, I didn't know. I swear I didn't know he was there. Hey. He gripped her shoulders, forcing her to focus on him. This is not your fault. You hear me? None of this is your fault. He's everywhere. He sees everything. How do I fight that? How do I? We escalate. Eleanor blinked. What? Stone's jaw tightened. I made some calls this morning. Before you rang, word's been spreading through the network about what's happening here. He pulled out his phone, showing her a screen full of messages. Brothers from Montana, Wyoming, Idaho, Colorado, they want to help. How many? Last count, about 60 confirmed, more coming in every hour. 60. 60 men willing to ride across state lines for a woman they'd never met. I don't understand, Eleanor whispered. Why would they do this? Because it's the code. Stone's voice was fierce. You don't hurt women, you don't hurt children, and when someone breaks that code, you make damn sure they pay for it. He cupped her face in his rough hands. Victor thinks his money makes him untouchable. We're going to show him that some things can't be bought. Ruth had been watching silently. Now she stepped forward, her expression unreadable. What exactly are you planning? Stone met her eyes. A show of force. Victor's a bully, and bullies only understand one thing. We're going to make it very clear that Eleanor has protection. Real protection. The kind that doesn't back down. And if he doesn't stop, then we make him stop. The words hung in the air, heavy with implication. Ruth looked at Eleanor, then back at Stone. You really love her, she said finally. Don't you? More than I knew that I could love anything. Ruth nodded slowly. Then do what you need to do. But Stone, she grabbed his arm as he turned to leave. If you get her hurt, I will find a way to make you regret it. I don't care how many biker friends you have. Something that might have been respect flickered across Stone's face. Understood. He took Eleanor's hand. Come on, we've got work to do. They walked out together, leaving the photograph face down on the donation table, Victor's message already fading into irrelevance. Because Eleanor had made her choice, and she was done being afraid. The War Council convened in Stone's garage that evening. Eleanor had never seen so many motorcycles in one place. They lined the street, filled the driveway, spilled onto neighboring lawns. Their owners crowded into the workspace, leather-clad men of all ages studying maps and passing around phones. The Crane family business is headquartered in Billings. Jimmy pointed to a spot on the map spread across Stone's workbench. Construction company, about 300 employees. What do we know about his operations? Stone asked. Plenty. Carlos dropped a thick folder on the table. Been digging for a week. This guy's dirty as they come. Bribery, fraud, building code violations that got people killed. He looked at Eleanor. There was a collapse in 2019. Shopping center his company built. 3 workers died because he used substandard materials to save money. Eleanor's stomach turned. He told me it was an accident. It was negligence, criminal negligence. Carlos's expression was grim. The investigation got buried. Know why I am, his connections. Bingo. But here's the thing, we've got copies of everything. The original inspection reports, the payoff records, testimony from workers who were too scared to talk to the police but were happy to talk to us. Stone studied the documents. This is enough to put him away. For a long time, Jimmy agreed. But here's where it gets interesting. He pulled out another folder. Victor's got partners, silent investors who've been funding his projects for years. And some of those names, he let out a low whistle. Let's just say they wouldn't want this going public. Who? City councilman, a state senator. The police chief's brother. Jimmy grinned. Victor's whole empire is built on a foundation of dirty money and dirtier secrets. We start pulling at threads, the whole thing unravels. Eleanor looked around at the men filling the garage. Most of them she'd never met before tonight. Some had ridden for hours to be here. All of them were treating this like their own fight. Can I ask something? The room went quiet. Why? She gestured at the maps, the documents, the dozens of hardened bikers. You don't know me. You owe me nothing. Why are you doing this? A man she didn't recognize stepped forward, older than most with a long gray beard and tired eyes. Name's Dutch, he said. Rode with Stone for 15 years. Best man I ever knew. He glanced at Stone, then back at Eleanor. Year after I joined the club, my sister's husband put her in the hospital. Broke her jaw, 3 ribs punctured her lung. Eleanor's breath caught. The cops did nothing, said it was a domestic matter. Said she probably provoked him. Dutch's voice hardened. Stone gathered every brother he could find. 30 of us rode to that man's house in the middle of the night. Didn't touch him, didn't have to. Just let him know that if he ever laid a hand on my sister again, he'd disappear. What happened? He filed for divorce the next morning. Moved to another state. My sister hasn't seen him since. Dutch met her eyes. That's why I'm here, Mrs. Chambers. Because Stone was there for my family when no one else would be. And now it's my turn to return the favor. Similar murmurs rippled through the crowd. Stories shared, debts, acknowledged loyalty reaffirmed. Eleanor felt tears sliding down her cheeks. Thank you, she whispered. All of you. Thank you. Stone wrapped an arm around her shoulders. We're just getting started. His phone buzzed. He checked the screen and his expression went cold. What is it? Victor's on the move. Left Billings an hour ago. Stone looked up at Jimmy. He's coming back. How many men? Unknown, but his convoy was spotted heading west on I-90. The room erupted in motion. Phones appeared. Calls were made. Within minutes, the chaos had organized into something purposeful. We've got brothers watching every road into town, Jimmy reported. The second Victor crosses the county line, we'll know. Stone nodded. Get everyone in position. I want eyes on Eleanor's house, the shelter, every place she might go. What about her? Carlos jerked his chin toward Eleanor. She can't just walk around like normal. She won't. Stone turned to her. You're staying with me until this is over. Stone. Not negotiable. His voice softened. Please, Eleanor. I can't protect you if I don't know where you are. She wanted to argue, wanted to insist she could take care of herself. But she remembered the photograph, Victor's handwriting, the realization that he'd been close enough to touch. Okay. Relief flickered across Stone's face. Jimmy, you're in charge while I'm with her. Anything happens, you call me immediately. Got it. Stone took Eleanor's hand, leading her through the crowd of bikers toward the back of the garage. Where are we going? Somewhere safe. They emerged into the night air. Stone's motorcycle waited in the shadows. You trust me? Eleanor looked at him, this gruff, dangerous man who'd turned her world upside down, who'd shown her what it meant to be valued, protected, loved. With my life. Stone kissed her forehead, then hold on tight. The engine roared to life and they disappeared into the darkness. Stone's cabin sat at the end of a dirt road surrounded by pine trees and silence. Eleanor had never known it existed, had never known Stone had any place besides his garage and her kitchen. It's not much, he said, helping her off the bike. But it's secure. One road in, one road out. Anyone comes looking, we'll know long before they arrive. Inside the cabin was sparse but clean. A bed, a couch, a small kitchen, windows reinforced with steel bars, a gun safe in the corner that Eleanor tried not to look at. How long have you had this place? Bought it when I left the club, needed somewhere to disappear. Stone locked the door, checked the windows. Never thought I'd bring anyone here. Never. He turned to face her. This was my escape, my hiding place, the one spot where I didn't have to be anyone but myself. A pause. Bringing you here, it means something. Eleanor crossed to him, taking his hands. What does it mean? It means you're not just someone I'm protecting. You're not just someone I love. His voice roughened. It means you're home, Eleanor. Wherever I am, wherever I go, you're home. She kissed him, then soft and slow, tasting the promise in his words. The moment shattered when Stone's phone rang. He answered immediately. Jimmy, what's happening? Eleanor watched his face change. Confusion first, then disbelief, then something that looked almost like fear. You're sure? A pause. How many? Another pause, longer this time. Jesus Christ. Then what is it? He lowered the phone, staring at her with an expression she'd never seen before. Victor's convoy. It wasn't heading here. Then where aim? He's gathering his own army. Stone's voice was flat. Reached out to every private security firm, every mercenary group, every gun for hire he could find. Jimmy's contact says he's got at least 40 men. Yeah. Professional. Ready to move. Eleanor's blood turned to ice. Went 24 hours, maybe less. Stone grabbed her arms, his grip almost painful. He's not coming to threaten you, Eleanor. He's not coming to scare you. He's coming to take you. By force. How do we stop him? I don't know. The words seemed to cost him something. We've got 60 brothers. He's got 40 trained killers. If it comes to a fight, people will die. Yes. Eleanor pulled away, pacing the small cabin. Her mind raced through possibilities, discarding each one as quickly as it formed. Run. He'd find her. Hide. He'd wait her out. Surrender. She'd rather die. There has to be another way, she said. Something we haven't thought of. We've thought of everything, the evidence, the exposure, the show of force. None of it matters if he's willing to start a war. Then we end it before it starts. Stone stared at her. How? Eleanor stopped pacing. An idea was forming, terrible and perfect and utterly insane. The evidence Carlos gathered, the corruption, the bribes, the deaths. Who has copies? We do. And Carlos made backups. What about Victor's partners, the councilmen, the senator, the police chief's brother? Do they know how much we have? I don't think so. Eleanor's eyes narrowed. Then we tell them. What? We contact every single one of Victor's partners. We show them exactly what we have, exactly what it will cost them if this goes public. Her voice hardened, and we make it clear that if Victor doesn't back off, if he brings his army to this town, we release everything. Stone was quiet for a long moment. You want to use his own people against him. I want to show him that his money can't buy loyalty, that the men he's counting on will abandon him the second their own necks are on the line. Eleanor moved closer, gripping Stone's jacket. Victor's power has always been an illusion, a house of cards built on fear and favors. We don't have to beat his army. We just have to make his army disappear. And if it doesn't work, then we fight. Her jaw set. But we try this first. We try everything before we let people die for me. Stone studied her face for a long moment. Then slowly a smile spread across his weathered features. You know something. When I met you, I thought you needed saving. And now I think you might be the one saving us. He pulled out his phone, dialing Jimmy. Change of plans, he said when the call connected. Get me the contact information for every name in Carlos's files. We're going to make some calls. The next 12 hours were chaos. Stone worked the phone while Eleanor organized the information, sorting names and numbers and leverage points into a battle plan. Jimmy coordinated the brothers, keeping watch on Victor's movements, while Carlos dug up additional dirt on anyone they might have missed. By dawn, they had a list of 17 names, 17 powerful men whose careers would implode the moment that evidence went public. Stone made the first call at 6 a.m. Mr. Hendricks, my name is Gunnar McAllister. We need to talk about your partnership with Victor Crane. Eleanor listened as Stone laid out the situation with brutal efficiency. The evidence they had, the exposure they could guarantee, the simple choice between abandoning Victor now or facing destruction alongside him. Hendricks, a city councilman who'd accepted bribes for 15 years, folded in under 10 minutes. "Tell Crane to leave that woman alone," he said, his voice shaking. "Tell him I won't be part of this. Not anymore." The second call took longer. The state senator demanded proof, then copies, then time to think. Stone gave him exactly 1 hour. The senator called back in 45 minutes. "What do you want me to do?" "Contact Victor. Tell him you're withdrawing support. Tell him this war is over before it starts." "He'll kill me." "He'll try." Stone's voice was ice. "But right now you're more afraid of us than you are of him. Remember that feeling." By noon 11 of the 17 had capitulated. By afternoon 14. By evening all 17 men had called Victor Crane to deliver the same message: "This ends now." Eleanor sat on Stone's couch exhausted and wired, watching him pace while they waited for the response. "What if it's not enough?" she asked. "It has to be." But what if Stone's phone rang? He looked at the screen. His face went blank. "It's Victor." Eleanor's heart stopped. "Answer it." Stone put the phone on speaker. "Crane." Victor's voice filled the cabin, cold and controlled, but with an edge Eleanor had never heard before. The sound of a man realizing he'd lost. "You've been busy." "Had to be. You weren't going to stop otherwise." A long silence. Eleanor could almost hear Victor's mind, working calculating angles, searching for leverage that no longer existed. "She's not worth this," Victor said finally. "She's nothing. A scared little woman who couldn't even cook a decent meal. Why would you destroy everything for that?" "Because she's worth more than you'll ever understand." Another silence. Longer this time. "This isn't over." "Yeah, it is." Stone's voice hardened. "Your partners have abandoned you. Your army disbanded the moment they realized you couldn't pay them anymore. And that evidence we have, it's already in the hands of 3 different journalists scheduled for release if anything happens to Eleanor or anyone she cares about. You're bluffing. Try me." Eleanor held her breath. The silence stretched on forever. Then Victor laughed, not his usual confident sound, something broken and bitter. "You think you've won," he said. "You think this is the end. But I want you to remember something, Eleanor, both of you. I've been patient for 5 years. I can be patient for 5 more. For 50. Victor, you'll never be safe. Not really. Every time you hear a car outside your window, every time a stranger looks at you too long, every time you wake up in the middle of the night, you'll wonder if it's me. If I've finally come back." His voice dropped to a whisper. "And someday, Eleanor, someday I will." The line went dead. Eleanor stared at the phone, her whole body trembling. "He's not going to stop," she whispered. "He'll wait. He'll watch. And when we least expect it." "Hey." Stone pulled her into his arms. "Look at me. Eleanor, look at me." She raised her eyes to his. "I don't care if he waits 5 years or 50. I don't care if I have to spend the rest of my life looking over my shoulder." His hands cupped her face, rough thumbs, wiping away tears she hadn't realized she was crying. "You are not alone anymore. Whatever comes next, we face it together. Do you understand? I'm scared." "So am I." He pressed his forehead to hers. "But I've got 60 brothers who will ride to hell and back for you. I've got enough evidence to bury Victor 10 times over. And I've got something he'll never have." "What? You?" Stone kissed her soft and fierce at once. "I've got you, and that makes me the luckiest man alive." Eleanor clung to him, trying to believe it, trying to trust that this wasn't just another cage dressed up as freedom. The phone buzzed again. Jimmy's name on the screen. Stone answered. "Talk to me." "It's done." Even through the speaker, Jimmy's relief was palpable. "Victor's convoy just turned around. His men are scattering. Whatever you said to him, it worked. For now?" "Yeah," a pause. "For now, but Stone, the brothers are saying they'll stay. As long as it takes, whatever Eleanor needs." Stone looked at her, something raw and vulnerable in his eyes. "Tell them thank you. Tell them," his voice cracked. "Tell them I'll never forget this." "You got it, brother." The call ended. The cabin fell silent. Eleanor let out a breath she felt like she'd been holding for 5 years. "It's really over. The immediate threat, yes. Stone pulled her closer. The rest we'll figure out. How be together, he kissed her forehead, always together. Outside, the first rays of dawn were breaking through the pine trees. Eleanor watched the light spread across the floor, chasing away shadows she'd carried for so long. Victor's threat still echoed in her mind. The promise of patience, the certainty of his return, but for the first time the fear felt manageable. Not gone, maybe never gone, but smaller somehow. A monster she could face instead of one she could only flee. Because she wasn't alone anymore. Because she had Stone. Because 60 strangers had become family overnight, bound together by a code older than any of them. The war wasn't over. Eleanor knew that. Victor Crane was many things, but he wasn't a man who accepted defeat. But the next battle wouldn't be fought alone. And in that moment, that was enough. I love you, she said quietly. Stone's arms tightened around her. I love you too. And somewhere out there, Victor Crane was plotting his revenge, making new plans, finding new weapons. But Eleanor Chambers would be ready. This time she wouldn't run. This time she would fight. 2 weeks of peace. Eleanor had almost started to believe it was real. She moved back into her house after the first week despite Stone's protests. The cabin was safe, but it wasn't home. And Eleanor was tired of letting Victor control where she lived, how she breathed, whether she could walk to her own mailbox without fear. I'll have brothers watching the house, Stone had said, finally relenting. Round the clock. You see anything suspicious, you call me. I will. I mean it, Eleanor. Anything at all. She kissed him then, long and slow, trying to communicate what words couldn't. That she trusted him. That she wasn't being reckless. That she simply needed to feel like herself again. The shelter welcomed her back like she'd never left. Katie Morrison brought her children by to show off their new coats. Ruth fussed over her like a mother hen. Even the regulars seemed lighter somehow, as if Eleanor's return had restored some essential balance to the universe. You look happy, Ruth observed one afternoon. I am happy. Eleanor said it out loud, testing the words. They felt foreign on her tongue, like a language she'd forgotten how to speak. Is that strange? After everything you've been through, no honey. It's a miracle. Stone came by every evening. Sometimes they'd cook dinner together, burning pasta and laughing about it. Sometimes they'd just sit on the porch, watching the stars emerge while his motorcycle cooled in the driveway. Sometimes he'd fall asleep on her couch, too exhausted from coordinating his brothers to make it back to the cabin, and Eleanor would cover him with a blanket and feel something expand in her chest. This is what normal looks like, she thought. This is what I fought for. On day 15, the phone call started. The first one came at 3 a.m. Eleanor fumbled for her phone, expecting Stone, finding only silence on the other end. Breathing, steady and patient. Hello, who is this? The line went dead. She told herself it was nothing. A wrong number, a prank. The second call came the next night. Same time, same silence, same breathing. Victor, if this is you? Click. She didn't tell Stone. He had enough to worry about, and she wasn't even sure it was Victor. Couldn't be sure. It could be anyone. But she knew. Deep in her bones, in the place where survival instinct lived, she knew. He was still watching. Day 17 broke gray and cold. Eleanor woke with a headache and a sense of dread she couldn't shake. The shelter was short-staffed, so she threw herself into work sorting donations until her back ached and her mind quieted. Ruth left early for a doctor's appointment. The other volunteers trickled out one by one. By 5 o'clock, Eleanor was alone. She should have called Stone, should have asked for a ride. But his truck was in the shop, and Jimmy had the brothers scattered across 3 counties, tracking a lead on one of Victor's former associates. It's fine, she told herself. The house is 4 blocks away, 4 blocks in broad daylight. She locked the shelter door and started walking. The first 2 blocks were uneventful. Eleanor kept her phone in her hand, Stone's number already pulled up, thumb hovering over the call button. Then she heard it. A car engine. Idling. She glanced over her shoulder. A black SUV sat at the curb, half a block back, windows tinted, headlights off. Eleanor's heart slammed against her ribs. She walked faster. The SUV didn't move. Maybe she was imagining things. Maybe it was just someone checking their phone, waiting for a friend. She turned the corner onto her street. The SUV turned too. Eleanor broke into a run. Her house appeared ahead, porch light, glowing safety so close she could taste it. She fumbled for her keys, heard the SUV door open behind her, heard footsteps. Eleanor? Victor's voice stopped her cold. She spun. He stood in the middle of the sidewalk, hands in his coat pockets, that terrible patient smile on his face. Did you really think I'd let you go? Stay away from me. Or what? He took a step closer. You'll call your biker. He's not here, Eleanor. I made sure of it. Her blood turned to ice. What did you do to Stone? Nothing, yet. Another step. But I have friends watching him. Friends watching all of them. One phone call, Eleanor. That's all it takes. You're bluffing. Am I? Victor pulled out his phone, showed her the screen. A photo of Stone's cabin. A red dot marking the location. I know where he sleeps, where he eats, where he keeps his guns. His smile widened. I know everything. Eleanor's mind raced. The house was 10 feet away. If she could get inside, lock the door, call for help. Don't! Victor's voice sharpened. I've got 2 men in that SUV. You run, they'll catch you before you reach the porch. And then this gets ugly. What do you want? What I've always wanted, you. I'm not yours anymore. You were always mine. He stepped closer, close enough that she could smell his cologne, that familiar scent that made her stomach heave. 25 years, Eleanor. 25 years I shaped, you molded, you made you who you are. You think some biker can erase that? He didn't erase anything. He showed me what I was worth. Victor's expression flickered. Something dark moved behind his eyes. You want to know what you're worth? I'll tell you. You're worth whatever I decide you're worth. And right now, his hand shot out, closing around her wrist. I've decided you're coming with me. Eleanor reacted on instinct. 25 years of survival kicked in muscle memory she didn't know she still had. She drove her palm up into Victor's nose, felt the crunch of cartilage, heard his howl of pain. His grip loosened. She ran. The front door was unlocked. She'd meant to fix that, meant to be more careful, and right now she blessed her own negligence as she burst through and slammed it behind her. Lock, deadbolt, chain. Victor's fist hit the door hard enough to shake the frame. Eleanor, open this door. She backed away, phone already at her ear. Stone, he's here. Victor's at my house. I'm 20 minutes out. Lock yourself in and don't open the door for anyone. He's trying to break in. The door will hold. Eleanor, listen to me. The attic. Remember what I told you about the attic? The attic. Stone had installed a reinforced door last week, steel core with a deadbolt that locked from the inside. A safe room, he'd called it, just in case. I remember. Get up there now, I'm coming. The front door shuddered again. Wood splintered somewhere. Eleanor ran for the stairs. Behind her, she heard glass breaking. The kitchen window. They were coming through the kitchen window. She hit the second floor at a dead sprint. The attic door waited at the end of the hall, that beautiful reinforced door that Stone had insisted on despite her protests. Footsteps on the stairs. Heavy. Fast. Eleanor reached the door, yanked it open, threw herself through. Her hand found the deadbolt. Turn it. Turn it now. The lock clicked home just as something heavy slammed into the other side. Eleanor! Victor's voice raw with fury. Open this door! She scrambled backward, pressing herself against the far wall. Her phone glowed in the darkness. Stone, I'm in. I'm in the attic. Good. Stay there. Don't open that door for anyone but me. How will I know it's you? I'll say step away from the door. That's our code. You hear anything else, anyone else, you stay put. The door shuddered again and again. He's trying to break in. He can't. That door is rated for serious force. It'll hold. A pause. I'm coming, Eleanor. Hold on. The line went dead. Eleanor huddled in the darkness, listening to Victor rage on the other side of the door. His fists against steel. His voice cycling between threats and pleas and that terrible, reasonable tone he used when he wanted her to think she was crazy. Eleanor, this is ridiculous. I just want to talk. She didn't answer. You're making this worse than it needs to be. If you'd just come out, we could discuss this like adults. Silence. Damn it, Eleanor. The mask slipped, fury bleeding through. You can't hide forever. You can't. His voice cut off. She heard him speaking to someone, words muffled through the steel door. Then footsteps retreating down the hall. Eleanor's heart pounded. What was he doing? Why had he stopped? Minutes crawled by. 5, 10, 15. Then she smelled it. Smoke. No, 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 no. She pressed her face to the crack at the bottom of the door. Gray wisps curled through acrid and thick. Victor was burning down the house. Eleanor's phone was already dialing. Stone, I'm 5 minutes out. He set a fire. Stone, there's smoke. I can smell smoke. Can you get to the window? The attic window? She turned, searching the darkness. The small window at the far end barely big enough to fit through. I see it. Open it. Get fresh air. I'm almost there. Eleanor stumbled toward the window, tripping over boxes, old furniture, the accumulated debris of 30 years. The smoke was getting thicker. Her eyes burned. Her lungs seized. The window was painted shut. She slammed her palm against it once, twice again. The frame cracked. Wood splintered. Fresh air rushed in cold and clean. Eleanor gulped it down, her whole body shaking. Below she heard sirens. Someone had called the fire department. The smoke was climbing, seeping through every crack, filling the attic with poison. Stone, where are you? I'm here, I'm outside. She looked down. Stone's motorcycle sat in the driveway, and he was already running toward the house. The front door's blocked, fire's in the kitchen. I'm going through the side. Stone, it's not safe. I'm not leaving you in there. Through the window, Eleanor watched him disappear around the corner of the house. She heard breaking glass, heard him coughing, heard his boots on the stairs. The smoke was everywhere now. She couldn't see, could barely breathe. Then his voice muffled through the steel door. Eleanor, Stone. Step away from the door. Their code. She threw herself aside just as something crashed against the steel with impossible force. Once. Twice. The door flew open and Stone was there, face streaked with soot, eyes wild with fear. Come on! He grabbed her hand, pulling her through smoke and fire and chaos. The stairs were burning. He didn't hesitate, half carrying her down while flames licked at their heels. The front door was blocked by a wall of fire. Stone turned, dragging her toward the back of the house. Kitchen window. Move. They burst through the shattered glass, tumbling onto the back lawn just as something inside exploded. The force knocked them flat, heat washing over them in a wave. Eleanor lay on the grass, gasping, staring up at the sky while her house burned. You okay? Stone was on his knees beside her, the hands running over her arms, her face checking for injuries. Eleanor, talk to me. I'm okay. She wasn't sure it was true. I'm okay. Sirens screamed closer. Firefighters swarmed the property. Someone wrapped a blanket around Eleanor's shoulders. Someone else pressed an oxygen mask to her face. Through it all, Stone never let go of her hand. Victor, she managed. Where's Victor? Stone's expression went dark. Gone. His SUV took off when the fire truck showed up. A muscle twitched in his jaw. But we'll find him. He'll come back. I know. He'll never stop. I know. Stone pulled her close, his voice rough against her hair. But neither will I. Eleanor closed her eyes, letting the tears come. Her house was gone. Her sanctuary, her fresh start, the life she'd built over 5 years of hoping and healing. Gone. But she was alive. Stone was alive. And somewhere into the smoke and chaos and loss, that had to count for something. Jimmy arrived 20 minutes later, Carlos and Big Mike right behind him. The brothers gathered around Eleanor like a protective wall, their faces grim with barely contained fury. We've got eyes on Victor's car, Jimmy reported. He's heading east on Road 12. Follow him, Stone said. Don't engage, just track him. And then Stone looked at Eleanor, something cold and resolved settling into his features. Then we end this, for good. The brothers dispersed, engines roaring into the night. Stone helped Eleanor to her feet, guiding her toward Jimmy's truck. Where are we going? Somewhere Victor can't find you. Stone, no. His voice was final. No more playing defense. No more waiting for him to strike. We've got the evidence, we've got the manpower, and now we've got motive. His jaw tightened. He tried to burn you alive, Eleanor. That changes everything. She nodded slowly, understanding, settling over her like a second skin. Victor had crossed a line. There was no going back from this, no pretending, no negotiating. This ended only one way now. Someone had to fall. The safe house was an old farmhouse outside town owned by a brother who'd moved to Florida years ago. No paper trail, no connection to Stone or Eleanor, just empty rooms and silence. Eleanor sat on a dusty couch while Stone paced, phone pressed to his ear. What do you mean they lost him? A pause. How the hell do you lose a car? He swore, running a hand through his hair. Fine, keep looking. Check every road, every motel, every hole he might crawl into. He hung up, turning to face Eleanor with frustration etched into every line of his face. Victor's in the wind. His car was found abandoned at a strip mall 10 miles east. He switched vehicles. He planned this. He plans everything. Stone dropped onto the couch beside her. That's what makes him dangerous. He doesn't act on impulse. Every move is calculated. So what now? Now we calculate better. Before Eleanor could respond, Stone's phone buzzed again. He glanced at the screen and his whole body went rigid. What is it? He showed her the message. Unknown number. 3 words. Check your email. Stone opened his inbox with steady hands. One new message, no subject line, from an address he didn't recognize. He clicked it open. A video started playing. Victor's face composed and smiling, filling the screen. Hello, Eleanor. Hello, Mr. McAllister. If you're watching this, you've discovered that I'm no longer where you expected me to be. But don't worry, I haven't gone far. Eleanor's stomach dropped. I want to propose a trade. You have something I want. I have something he'd want. Victor's smile widened, or should I say, someone. The camera panned to the right. Ruth Henderson sat tied to a chair, duct tape over her mouth, terror in her eyes. Your friend was kind enough to leave the shelter alone this evening. She really should be more careful. Victor stepped into frame beside Ruth, one hand resting on her shoulder. Here's how this works. Eleanor comes to me alone within the next 4 hours. If she does, Ruth goes free unharmed. If she doesn't, he pulled a knife from his pocket, pressing the blade against Ruth's throat. Well, let's just say things will get unpleasant. Ruth whimpered behind the tape. You have my number, Eleanor. Call when you're ready to be reasonable. And Mr. McAllister, Victor's eyes seemed to bore through the screen. If I see any of your biker friends within a mile of the exchange point, Ruth dies. Slowly, while Eleanor watches. The video ended. Silence. Eleanor stared at the blank screen, her mind refusing to process what she'd just seen. Ruth. Sweet, nosy, impossible Ruth, who'd been her first friend in Pine Ridge, who'd brought her casseroles and gossip and made her feel less alone. Because of her. Because Victor wanted to hurt her and Ruth was convenient. I have to go. Eleanor. He'll kill her. She was already standing, already moving toward the door. If I don't show up, he'll kill her. You saw his face. He's not bluffing. And if you do show up, he'll kill you both. Maybe, but at least Ruth has a chance. Stone grabbed her arm, spinning her to face him. Listen to me. This is exactly what he wants. He's using her as bait, and if you walk into that trap, then what? What's the alternative? Eleanor's voice cracked. Let Ruth die. Let him kill her because I was too scared to face him. I can't live with that, Stone. I can't. And I can't live without you. The words hung in the air between them, raw and desperate. Stone's hands trembled on her arms. This man who'd faced down armies, who'd survived decades of violence, who'd never shown fear in all the time she'd known him, he was terrified. There has to be another way, he said. We'll find where he's keeping her. We'll get the brothers together. He said alone. He said if he sees anyone, he's lying. He's going to kill you both, no matter what you do. Maybe. Eleanor reached up, cupping his face in her hands. But I have to try it. I have to at least try. Then I'm coming with you. But Stone Bosch, not negotiable. His jaw set. You go, I go. Victor wants to end this fine. We'll end it. Together. Eleanor searched his eyes, looking for doubt, finding only certainty. He'll kill us. He'll try. Stone pulled her close, pressing his forehead to hers. But I've got one thing Victor Crane will never have. What? Something worth dying for. Eleanor kissed him, then hard and desperate, tasting fear and love, and the terrible knowledge that this might be the last time. When they broke apart, Stone was already reaching for his phone. Jimmy, change of plans. He met Eleanor's eyes as he spoke. We're going to war. The call to Victor was brief. Eleanor, I knew you'd see reason. Where? The old Mercer warehouse on Route 7. You know the one. I'll be there in an hour. Alone, Eleanor. Remember what I said about... I remember. She hung up before he could say anything else. Stone was already gathering weapons, moving with the efficient grace of a man who'd done this before. The brothers? Eleanor asked. They'll be there. Victor won't see them, but they'll be there. Stone checked the chamber of a pistol, then handed it to her. You know how to use this. She stared at the gun in her hands. Cold metal, deadly weight. Point and shoot. Safety's here. Don't use it unless you have to. His eyes met hers. But if you have to, don't hesitate. Eleanor nodded, tucking the gun into her waistband. This was really happening. After all the running, all the hiding, all the years of fear, it was finally ending. One way or another. Eleanor. Stone's voice softened. If something goes wrong tonight, don't. If something goes wrong, I need you to know. Stone. She pressed a finger to his lips. Tell me after. When this is over. When Ruth is safe and Victor is gone. Tell me then. He kissed her finger, then her palm, then pulled her into an embrace that felt like a promise. After, he agreed. I'll tell you after. They walked out into the night together, leaving the safe house behind. The warehouse waited, and so did Victor Crane. The road to Route 7 stretched dark and empty. Eleanor sat in the passenger seat of Jimmy's truck, watching the miles disappear, trying not to think about what waited at the end. Stone drove in silence, his knuckles white on the steering wheel. The brothers are in position, he said finally, surrounding the warehouse at a half-mile perimeter. Victor won't know they're there until it's too late. And if he does, then we improvise. Eleanor touched the gun at her waist, drawing strange comfort from its presence. She'd never shot anyone in her life, had never imagined she could. But for Ruth, for Stone, she'd do whatever it took. The warehouse emerged from the darkness, a hulking shadow against the night sky. One light burned in a window on the second floor. Stone killed the engine. Last chance to change your mind. Eleanor opened her door. Let's finish this. They approached the warehouse side by side, steps synchronized, breath misting in the cold air. The main entrance stood open, a rectangle of deeper darkness. Victor Stone's voice echoed in the emptiness. We're here, show yourself. Silence. Then footsteps high above. Victor appeared on a metal catwalk. Ruth beside him, his arm locked around her throat. I sat alone, Eleanor. I lied. Victor's smile didn't falter. So did I. Floodlights blazed to life, blinding them. When Eleanor's vision cleared, she saw the men emerging from every shadow, every corner, weapons drawn. Not 2, not 5, at least 20. Did you really think I wouldn't prepare? Victor called down. Did you think your little biker gang could outsmart me? Stone moved in front of Eleanor, shielding her with his body. Let Ruth go. Your fight is with us, not her. My fight is with anyone who helped Eleanor defy me. Victor's grip tightened on Ruth's throat. She's been quite helpful, actually. Told me all about your plans, your safe house, your brothers lurking in the woods. Eleanor's blood ran cold. Ruth would never, not willingly, know. Victor produced a syringe from his pocket, but sodium pentothal is remarkably persuasive. Truth serum, he drugged her. Here's how this is going to work, Victor continued. Your biker friends are about to receive a very unpleasant surprise. My men have been tracking them for hours. In about 3 minutes, they'll be surrounded and outgunned. He smiled. And then, Eleanor, you and I are going to have a long overdue conversation. Go to hell. Eventually. Victor's eyes glittered. But first, I'm going to remind you what happens when you forget who you belong to. The first gunshot shattered the silence. Not from Victor's men, from outside. Then another, and another. The sounds of a battle erupting in the woods surrounding the warehouse. Victor's smile faltered. What? Stone was already moving. He tackled Eleanor behind a concrete pillar, just as Victor's men opened fire bullets, chewing into the floor where they'd stood. Stay down, Stone pressed her flat, covering her body with his. Above them, Victor screamed orders. Chaos erupted, men running, gunfire echoing the sounds of a war Eleanor couldn't see. Jimmy's early, Stone grunted. Good man. What do? We get Ruth. Stone pulled her to her feet, keeping low, moving from pillar to pillar. Eleanor glimpsed the battle around them. Victor's men taking cover, returning fire against an enemy outside. The catwalk stairs loomed ahead. Ruth was up there. Ruth was, Eleanor looked up. Victor was dragging Ruth toward a back exit, his arms still locked around her throat. Stone. He followed her gaze, swore, Go, I'll cover you. Eleanor didn't hesitate. She ran for the stairs, taking them two at a time, the gun in her hand now feeling like an extension of her arm. Behind her, Stone's pistol cracked. Someone screamed. Ahead, Victor reached the exit door. Victor. He turned. Eleanor raised the gun. Let her go. Victor laughed. Are you going to shoot me, Eleanor? You don't have the nerve. Try me. They stood frozen to the battle raging below. Ruth's eyes met Eleanor's terrified pleading. Sorry. You won't do it, Victor said. You're too soft, too weak. That's why you needed me all those years. That's why you'll always need... Eleanor pulled the trigger. The bullet caught Victor in the shoulder, spinning him sideways. His grip on Ruth released. Ruth stumbled forward, falling into Eleanor's arms. Ruth, are you okay? Eleanor, he said he made me tell him. It's okay, it's not your fault. Can you walk? Ruth nodded weakly. Eleanor turned back to Victor. He was slumped against the wall, blood seeping through his fingers, but his eyes were still alive with fury. You shot me. Disbelief colored his voice. You actually shot me. Eleanor kept the gun trained on him, her hands steady for the first time in 30 years. I should have done it 25 years ago. Victor's laugh was wet, pained. This doesn't change anything. I'll heal. I'll come back. I'll always come back. No. Stone's voice came from behind her. He climbed the last stair, taking in the scene with a single glance. You won't. He raised his own weapon. Stone, Eleanor said quietly, don't. Give me one good reason. Because I'm not going to let him make you into a killer. She stepped toward Victor, the gun never wavering, and because I want him to suffer, I want him to watch everything he built crumble. I want him to spend the rest of his life knowing that I won. Stone hesitated. Below the gunfire was dying. Jimmy's voice echoed through the warehouse. Clear. We're clear. It's over, Victor. Eleanor crouched beside her ex-husband, looking into the eyes that had haunted her nightmares for decades. The evidence goes public tomorrow. Your partners have already abandoned you. And now, she glanced at his shoulder wound. You're going to prison for arson, for kidnapping, for attempted murder. You can't prove... I can prove everything. She smiled and it felt like freedom. I've been documenting for 25 years, every bruise, every hospital visit, every time you made me believe I was worthless. She stood stepping back. You wanted to own me, Victor. But you never did. Not really. And now the whole world is going to know exactly what kind of monster you are. Sirens wailed in the distance. Police, ambulances, the cavalry finally arriving. Victor's face twisted with hatred. This isn't over. Yes, Eleanor said, taking Stone's hand. It is. She walked away without looking back. Behind her, Victor Crane screamed her name. She didn't answer. She was done answering to him. The hospital waiting room smelled like antiseptic and stale coffee. Eleanor sat rigid in a plastic chair. Ruth's hand clutched in hers. The older woman had stopped shaking an hour ago, but her eyes still carried that distant look, the one Eleanor recognized from her own mirror, back when Victor's cruelty was fresh. I told him everything. Ruth's voice was barely a whisper. The safe house, the brothers, your plans. I couldn't stop myself. He drugged you, Ruth. It wasn't your fault. People could have died because of me. But they didn't. Eleanor squeezed her hand. Everyone's okay. Jimmy's got a graze on his arm. Carlos bruised some ribs, but everyone's walking and talking and complaining about the hospital food. Ruth's laugh came out more like a sob. I should have been more careful. Should have waited for someone to walk me home. You couldn't have known. Neither could you all those years ago. Ruth turned to face her eyes, red-rimmed but fierce. But you blamed yourself anyway, didn't you? Every time Victor hurt you, you found a way to make it your fault. Eleanor's throat tightened. She'd never talked about this with Ruth. Not really. That's different. Is it? Ruth shook her head. I've known you for 5 years, Eleanor Chambers. Watched you flinch at loud noises and apologize for taking up space and shrink yourself down to nothing whenever a man raised his voice. Her grip on Eleanor's hand turned painful. Don't you dare tell me what he did to me was different from what he did to you. It's the same poison, the same evil, And none of it, not one single moment, was ever your fault. Eleanor felt tears sliding down her cheeks. All those years, all that shame, all those nights lying awake cataloging her failures, wondering what she could have done differently to make Victor love her instead of hurt her. And here was Ruth, who'd spent maybe 12 hours in Victor's clutches, already understanding what had taken Eleanor decades to learn. "Thank you," she whispered. "For what?" "For being my friend, for not running away when things got hard." Eleanor's voice broke. "For being here." Ruth pulled her into a hug, both of them crying now, holding on to each other like survivors of a shipwreck. Stone found them that way 10 minutes later. He stood in the doorway, his leather jacket torn, a bandage wrapped around his left hand, looking like he'd walked through hell and come out the other side. "Victor's in custody," he said. "Police have him in a secure ward. Doctors say the shoulder wound is serious, but not life-threatening." "Good." Eleanor was surprised by the venom in her own voice. "I hope it hurts." Stone crossed the room, crouching in front of her. "You okay?" "I shot someone." "You defended yourself." "I could have killed him, but you didn't." Stone took her hands, his rough palms warm against her cold fingers. "You had every right to end him, Eleanor. After everything he did to you, no one would have blamed you. But you chose to let him face justice instead." His eyes held hers. "That takes more strength than pulling a trigger." "I don't feel strong." "You will." He kissed her forehead, gentle despite everything. "Give it time." Jimmy appeared in the doorway, a phone pressed to his ear. "Stone, we've got a problem." The tone in his voice made Eleanor's stomach drop. "What kind of problem?" "The evidence, the files Carlos compiled." Jimmy's jaw tightened. "Someone leaked that we have them. Victor's partners are scrambling. They're trying to get ahead of the story." "Get ahead of it, how?" "Lawyers, PR firms, spin doctors." Jimmy lowered his phone. "They're going to claim the documents are fabricated, that we manufactured everything to frame Victor." "That's insane." "We have original copies, which they'll say were doctored." Jimmy shook his head. "These are powerful people, Stone. They've got resources we can't match. If they control the narrative before that we can release the truth, then Victor walks." Eleanor's voice was flat. "He'll claim self-defense, paint me as the aggressor, and his army of lawyers will make this whole nightmare disappear." Stone stood slowly, his expression hardening. "Not if we move first. How about we release everything tonight, every newspaper, every TV station, every blogger with a following." He pulled out his phone. "They want a media war. We'll give them one they can't win." The next few hours were chaos. Stone's cabin became a command center, brothers crowded around laptops, burning phone lines, coordinating a media blitz that would have impressed a presidential campaign. Carlos handled the technical side, uploading documents to secure servers and creating download links that couldn't be traced or deleted. Jimmy worked the phones, calling every contact he'd cultivated over 30 years of moving in shadows. Big Mike surprisingly turned out to have a cousin who worked at the Associated Press. Eleanor sat in the middle of it all, writing, not documents, not evidence, her story. 25 years of marriage to Victor Crane, every beating, every humiliation, every moment she'd thought about ending it all because death seemed easier than another day of pretending everything was fine. "You don't have to do this." Stone stood behind her, reading over her shoulder. "The documents are enough." "No, they're not." Eleanor kept typing. "Documents that are numbers and dates and cold facts. People need to understand what it feels like. The fear, the isolation, the way he made me believe I deserved it." Her fingers paused on the keys. "If my story helps one woman recognize the signs, helps one person escape before it's too late, then it's worth whatever it costs me." Stone was quiet for a long moment. Then he bent down, pressing a kiss to her hair. "You're the bravest person I've ever known." "I'm terrified." "That's what makes it brave." The story went live at midnight. Eleanor watched the view counter tick upward, hundreds, then thousands, then tens of thousands. Comments flooded in, some supportive, some cruel, all of them overwhelming. By morning, it had gone viral. News vans appeared outside the hospital where Victor was being held. Reporters camped at the police station demanding statements. The mayor's office released a tersely worded promise to investigate all allegations thoroughly. And Victor's partners, they ran. The state senator announced his resignation at 6 a.m., citing family reasons. Two city councilmen followed by noon. The police chief's brother disappeared entirely, his house emptied overnight, his family claiming ignorance of his whereabouts. Rats leaving a sinking ship, Jimmy observed, watching the coverage on his phone. Beautiful thing to see. Eleanor couldn't enjoy it. Every time Victor's face appeared on screen, she felt that old fear clawing at her chest. He was in custody, wounded, surrounded by guards, and still she couldn't shake the feeling that he was watching her. See, he's going to find a way out, she told Stone that afternoon. He always does. Not this time. You don't know him like I do. No. Stone turned her to face him. But I know men like him. They survive by making people afraid, by convincing everyone they're untouchable. His hands gripped her shoulders. You shot him, Eleanor. You stood up to him in front of witnesses. You put your story out for the whole world to see. Whatever power he had over you, it's gone. Then why am I still scared? Because you're human. Stone pulled her close. But being scared doesn't mean you're weak. It means you're paying attention. Eleanor buried her face in his chest, breathing in leather and engine oil and safety. I love you, she murmured. I know. She laughed despite herself. That's not the romantic response I was hoping for. Fine. He tilted her chin up, eyes crinkling with unexpected warmth. I love you too, Eleanor Chambers. More than motorcycles. More than the open road. More than anything I've ever loved in my whole miserable life. Better. I thought so. He kissed her, and for one perfect moment, the fear receded. Then his phone rang. Stone glanced at the screen. His expression shifted. What is it? Unknown number. He answered, putting it on speaker. Who is this? A voice Eleanor didn't recognize, smooth, professional, utterly calm. Mr. McAllister, my name is Daniel Reeves. I represent Victor Crane. Stone's jaw tightened. Your client is facing multiple felony charges. I don't see what we have to discuss. Perhaps not, but my client has asked me to relay a message to Mrs. Chambers. A pause. He says to tell her that he knows where her sister lives. Eleanor's blood turned to ice. Her sister, Margaret. They hadn't spoken in years, not since Eleanor fled Victor, not since Margaret sided with him in the divorce, not since every family tie had been severed by Victor's manipulations. My client wants you to understand that he still has friends, people who owe him favors, people who would be happy to visit your sister and her family in a rustling of papers. Portland, Oregon, lovely city, very accessible. If you touch her, I'm merely passing along information, Mrs. Chambers. What happens next depends entirely on you. Stone grabbed the phone. Listen to me very carefully. If anyone goes near Eleanor's family, I will personally make sure Victor Crane doesn't live long enough to see trial. Do you understand? Threats, Mr. McAllister? From a man with your history, the lawyer's voice dripped condescension. I'd be careful. Everything you say is being recorded. Good. Then let me be clear. You tell your client that his games are over. You tell him that every move he makes, every threat, every phone call, it all goes into the evidence file. And you tell him, Stone's voice dropped to something deadly, that I've got 100 brothers who would ride to hell and back for the woman he hurt. 100 men who've been waiting for an excuse to pay him a visit. One word from me and his prison stay becomes very, very uncomfortable. Silence on the other end. I'll relay your message, the lawyer said finally. But Mr. McAllister, consider this friendly advice. My client doesn't make idle threats, and he doesn't forgive. The line went dead. Eleanor was already dialing. Who are you calling? Margaret. Her hands shook so badly she could barely hold the phone. I have to warn her. The phone rang. Once, twice, 3 times. Hello? Her sister's voice, older, wearier but unmistakable, hit Eleanor like a physical blow. Margaret, it's Eleanor. A long pause. I have nothing to say to you. Please just listen, Victor. You ruined his life. You and your lot and your biker trash. He's going to send someone after you. Eleanor cut through her sister's tirade. He's in jail, but he's got people. He threatened you, Margaret, you and your family. Another pause. Longer this time. You're lying. I'm not. Call the Portland police. Tell them you've received a credible threat. Get somewhere safe." Eleanor's voice cracked. "I know you hate me. I know you believe Victor over me, but please, please don't let him hurt you because of what I did." "You did this?" Margaret's voice was ice. "Whatever happens to my family, it's your fault. You should have just stayed with him. Should have been a good wife. But no, you had to run, had to make accusations, had to destroy everything. He beat me, Margaret. For 25 years, he broke my bones and called me worthless and made me wish I was dead." Eleanor was crying now, ugly sobs she couldn't control. "I didn't lie, I survived. And I'm sorry you can't see that, but right now I need you to be safe, please. Please just be safe." Silence, then very quietly, "Fine, I'll call the police." The line went dead. Eleanor lowered the phone, her whole body shaking. Stone gathered her in his arms without a word. "She hates me," Eleanor whispered. "She's been manipulated, lied to, gaslighted for years." Stone's voice was gentle. "That doesn't make it okay, but it might explain it. He turned my own family against me. He tried to turn everyone against you. That's what abusers do." Stone pulled back, cupping her face in his hands. "But he failed. You've got Ruth. You've got the brothers. You've got me." His thumb wiped away her tears. "You've got a whole army of people who see the truth, Eleanor. Who see you. Is it enough? It's going to have to be." The next 48 hours tested that claim. Victor's lawyer launched a counteroffensive, giving interviews to anyone who would listen, painting Eleanor as an unstable woman with a vendetta and Stone as a violent criminal manipulating a vulnerable victim. Sources close to Mr. Crane suggest that Mrs. Chambers has a history of mental health issues. One news anchor reported reading from a prepared statement. They claim she fabricated abuse allegations during divorce proceedings and has been stalking her ex-husband for years. Eleanor watched the coverage from Stone's cabin, feeling sick. "They're lying. Of course they're lying." Stone paced behind her. "But lies repeated often enough start to sound like truth. We need to push back." "How?" "More interviews, more statements, more proof." He stopped, turning to face her. "And we need people to see who you really are. Not the victim, not the survivor. The woman who built a new life from nothing." Ruth arrived that afternoon with a folder full of documents. "Letters," she explained, spreading them across the table. "From everyone you've helped at the shelter. Katie Morrison wrote about how you saved her family. Old Mr. Patterson talked about how you drove him to chemo appointments every week for 6 months." Ruth's eyes glistened. "There are over 50 of them, Eleanor. 50 people whose lives you changed." Eleanor stared at the pile, overwhelmed. "When did you?" "Started collecting them the day you moved to Pine Ridge. I always knew you were special." Ruth squeezed her hand. "Now the whole world gets to know it too." The letters went viral within hours. Suddenly the narrative shifted. Victor's lawyer could spin all he wanted, but he couldn't argue with 50 testimonials from real people, with real stories about a woman who had spent 5 years quietly making the world better. "Momentum's shifting," Jimmy reported that evening. "The DA's office is fielding calls from politicians who want to distance themselves from Victor. The judge assigned to his case recused himself after his connection to Victor's business partners came out." "What does that mean?" "It means he's running out of friends," Jimmy grinned, "and we're just getting started." The breakthrough came on day 3. Eleanor was helping Ruth sort through more testimonials when Carlos burst into the cabin, laptop in hand. "You need to see this, now." He set the computer on the table, pulling up a news clip. A woman Eleanor didn't recognize sat in an interview chair, face pale but determined. "My name is Sandra Chen. I was Victor Crane's assistant for 7 years." Eleanor's heart stopped. "I witnessed things I should have reported but was too afraid to speak up about." Sandra's voice wavered but held. "He hurt people, destroyed careers, used his power to intimidate anyone who crossed him. And his wife?" Her eyes filled with tears. "I saw what he did to Eleanor, the bruises she tried to hide, the fear in her eyes. I knew and I did nothing, and I'll have to live with that for the rest of my life." The interview continued, but Eleanor couldn't hear anymore. The room had gone fuzzy at the edges. "A witness," she breathed. "An actual witness. Not just one." Carlos pulled up another clip. "Victor's former driver came forward this morning. So did 2 of his security guards. And his old accountant, the one who cooked his books 4 years, is negotiating a plea deal in exchange for testimony. Stone leaned over the laptop, scanning the coverage. They're turning on him. Like dominoes. Carlos couldn't suppress his grin. 24 hours ago, Victor Crane was a respected businessman facing false accusations. Now he's a monster whose own employees are lining up to bury him. Eleanor sank into the chair, her legs suddenly unable to support her weight. It was happening. After all these years, after all the fear and pain and silence, the truth was finally coming out. "He's done," she whispered. "He's really done." Stone knelt beside her, taking her hands. "Not yet. Not until the trial. Not until the verdict. But I know this feels like the end. I know you want it to be over." His eyes held hers steady and certain. "But Victor's cornered, and cornered animals are dangerous. We can't let our guard down. Not now." As if to prove his point, Stone's phone buzzed with an incoming message. He read it. His expression went cold. "What?" Stone showed her the screen. A photo of Victor's empty hospital room. Crumpled sheets. No guards. 2 words beneath, "He's gone." Eleanor's blood turned to ice. How he was in custody, guards, cameras. Money. Stone was already moving, grabbing his jacket, checking his weapon. Money and connections in a system that's been looking the other way for decades. Where would he go? Stone paused at the door, his face grim. Where do cornered animals always go? Eleanor understood immediately. He's coming here. Jimmy's got brothers watching every road into town. If Victor's smart, he'll run. Stone met her eyes. But if he's desperate enough to come for you, he'll walk right into a trap. Maybe. Stone crossed back to her, cupping her face in his hands. But maybe isn't good enough. Not with him. I need you to stay here, stay hidden, and let me handle this. Stone, please, Eleanor. His voice cracked, and she saw it then, the fear he had been hiding beneath all that strength. I can't lose you, not now, not when we're so close to ending this. She kissed him hard, pouring everything she felt into the gesture. Go, she said. Find him. End this. Stone held her for one more moment. Then he was gone, the roar of his motorcycle fading into the distance. Eleanor stood alone in the cabin, surrounded by letters from people she'd helped and evidence that would destroy the man who'd tried to destroy her. And somewhere out there, Victor Crane was running, or hunting. She wasn't sure which was worse. The call came 3 hours later. Eleanor was sitting with Ruth, both of them pretending to read magazines while they waited for news. When her phone buzzed, she grabbed it so fast she nearly dropped it. Stone, Eleanor. His voice was strained. We found him. Where? A pause. Too long. Stone, where is he? The shelter. Eleanor's heart stopped. He's at the Pine Ridge shelter. He's got hostages. No. How many? We don't know yet. At least 10, maybe more. Stone's breath was ragged. Eleanor, he's asking for you, says he'll release them if you come. If you don't, she was already grabbing her jacket. Don't. Stone's voice turned sharp. That's exactly what he wants. He has innocent people, Stone. People I know. People I've helped. And if you go, he'll kill you. Maybe. Eleanor's hand closed around the gun Stone had given her, still tucked in her waistband. But I'm done running. I'm done hiding. I'm done letting Victor Crane control my life. Eleanor, I love you, she said. Whatever happens tonight, I need you to know that. You saved me. Not from Victor, from myself. From believing I wasn't worth saving. Her voice broke. So thank you. For everything. Eleanor, wait, she hung up. Ruth was staring at her, face pale. You're going. I have to. He'll kill you. Maybe. Eleanor opened the cabin door, the night air cold against her face. But maybe isn't the same as definitely. And right now, maybe is all I've got. She walked out into the darkness, leaving safety behind. Victor was waiting, and one way or another, this ended tonight. The shelter looked wrong in the darkness. Eleanor approached on foot, having abandoned the truck 2 blocks back. Every instinct screamed at her to run, to hide, to let someone else handle this nightmare. But those were Victor's voices in her head, the ones that had kept her small and silent for 25 years. She was done listening. The front door stood open. A single light burned inside. Eleanor pulled the gun from her waistband, checking the safety the way Stone had taught her. Her hands weren't shaking anymore. Something had shifted in the walk over here, some final piece of fear burning away and leaving only cold determination behind. She stepped through the door. Eleanor. Victor's voice came from the shadows near the back of the room. She couldn't see him clearly, but she could see the others, Katie Morrison huddled with her two children, old Mr. Patterson gripping his cane like a weapon, a half-dozen other familiar faces frozen in terror. And in the center of them all, Victor Crane, his wounded shoulder wrapped in bloody bandages, a gun in his hand. You came. He sounded almost surprised. I didn't think you had it in you. Let them go, Victor. No. He stepped closer and Eleanor saw his face clearly for the first time, pale sweating eyes wild with something beyond rage. They stay until we're done here, until you understand. Understand what? That you belong to me. His voice cracked. You've always belonged to me. These people, this town, this pathetic new life you built, none of it matters. None of it's real. The only thing that's real is us. Eleanor kept the gun raised, barrel pointed at his chest. There is no us. There never was. 25 years, Eleanor. 25 years I gave you everything, a home, status, security. And how do you repay me? Spittle flew from his lips. You run, you hide, you turn the whole world against me. You did that yourself. I loved you. The words echoed in the empty shelter. Katie's children started crying. That wasn't love, Eleanor said quietly. Love doesn't break bones. Love doesn't lock you in rooms for days. Love doesn't make you wish you were dead. I was trying to help you, to fix you. You were always so weak, so pathetic. I was never weak. Something shifted in Eleanor's chest, not anger, not fear, but clarity, pure crystalline clarity. I survived you. For 25 years, I survived your cruelty and your control and your twisted idea of love. That takes more strength than you'll ever understand. Victor's gun hand trembled. You think you're brave. You think coming here makes you some kind of hero. He grabbed Katie Morrison, yanking her in front of him like a shield. Let's test that theory. Katie screamed. Her children wailed. Eleanor's finger tightened on the trigger. Let her go. Or what? You'll shoot me through her. Victor laughed high and unhinged. We both know you don't have the nerve. I shot you once already. A lucky hit. You were aiming for my head. He pressed the gun to Katie's temple. But this time, Eleanor, I'm not the one in danger. Eleanor's mind raced. She couldn't shoot without risking Katie, couldn't rush him without getting someone killed, couldn't glass shattered somewhere behind her. Victor's head snapped toward the sound. In that split second of distraction, Katie drove her elbow back into his wounded shoulder. Victor howled, his grip loosening. Katie dove for her children, dragging them toward the door. Eleanor didn't hesitate. She charged. They collided with enough force to send both of them crashing to the floor. Victor's gun skittered away into the darkness. Eleanor's followed. Then it was just the two of them grappling on the cold concrete, 25 years of accumulated fury exploding in a tangle of limbs and desperation. Victor's hands found her throat. Should have killed you years ago, he snarled, squeezing. Should have made it look like an accident. Everyone would have believed me. Poor Victor losing his unstable wife. Eleanor couldn't breathe, couldn't speak, her hand closed around something metal, cold, heavy. Mr. Patterson's cane. She swung with everything she had. The impact caught Victor across the temple, his grip released. Eleanor rolled away, gasping, dragging air into her burning lungs. Victor struggled to his knees, blood streaming down his face. She hit him again, and again, and again. 25 years of fear and pain and silence poured through her arms with every swing. She wasn't Eleanor the victim anymore. Wasn't Eleanor the survivor. She was something new, something forged in fire and baptized in blood. Eleanor! Eleanor, stop! Stone's voice cut through the red haze. Strong arms wrapped around her, pulling her back, prying the cane from her grip. It's over. Eleanor, it's over. He's down. She blinked, her vision clearing. Victor lay motionless on the floor, his face a mask of blood. For one terrible moment, she thought she'd killed him. Then he groaned, twitched, opened his swollen eyes. Should have finished. His voice was barely a whisper. Eleanor looked down at the man who had stolen 25 years of her life. The man who had convinced her she was worthless, crazy, unlovable. The man who had turned her own family against her and tried to burn down her home and terrorized innocent people just to prove he could. She felt nothing. Not satisfaction, not triumph, not even relief. Just emptiness, where the fear used to live. No, she said quietly. Killing you would be too easy. Too quick. She crouched beside him, her voice steady. You're going to spend the rest of your life in a cage, Victor. No money, no power, no control, just you alone with yourself, knowing that I won. Victor's mouth worked, but no sound came out. Eleanor stood, taking Stone's hand. Get him out of my sight. The brothers swarmed in, securing Victor with zip ties, dragging him toward the waiting police cars that had finally arrived. Jimmy was there, and Carlos, and Big Mike, and dozens more men who'd ridden through the night to stand with her. Katie Morrison rushed forward, throwing her arms around Eleanor. You saved us. You saved my children. I just did what needed to be done. No. Katie pulled back, tears streaming down her face. You were brave. Braver than anyone I've ever known. After everything he did to you. She shook her head. You came back for us anyway. Eleanor felt something crack in her chest. Not breaking, healing, a fissure closing that had been open for decades. We take care of each other, she said. That's what we do. More people emerged from the shadows. Mr. Patterson leaning on a borrowed shoulder. The other hostages shaken but alive. Ruth, who'd somehow followed her despite being told to stay put. You absolute fool. Ruth grabbed her in a fierce hug. You could have died. I know. You scared me half to death. I know. I'm so proud of you. Eleanor held her friend tighter, letting the tears come at last. Not tears of fear or pain, but of relief, of release, of finally being free. Stone waited until the others had drifted away, until the police had taken Victor, until the shelter had emptied and the night had grown quiet. Then he pulled her into his arms and held her like she was the most precious thing in the world. You're insane, he murmured against her hair. Probably. You could have been killed. I wasn't. I told you to stay put. Since when do I listen to you? He laughed, then a broken, exhausted, wonderful sound. Fair point. They stood there for a long moment, wrapped in each other, letting the reality sink in. Victor was gone. The nightmare was over. Somehow, impossibly, that they'd survived. What happens now? Eleanor asked. Now, Stone pulled back, cupping her face in his hands. Now we live. We wake up tomorrow and the day after that, and the day after that, and we figure out what a normal life looks like. I don't remember what normal feels like. Me neither. He kissed her forehead. We'll learn together. The sun was rising by the time they left the shelter. Pink and gold light spilled across Pine Ridge, painting the streets in colors Eleanor had never really noticed before. Everything looked different now. Brighter, more vivid, more real. This was her town, her home, her life, and no one was ever taking it from her again. 3 months later, the trial began. Eleanor sat in the front row of the courtroom every single day, Stone on one side and Ruth on the other. She watched as witness after witness took the stand, Sandra Chen, the assistant, who'd stayed silent for years. Victor's former driver, who'd heard the screams and said nothing. The accountant, the security guards, the business partners who'd enabled his crimes for decades. And then it was her turn. Eleanor walked to the witness stand with her head held high. The courtroom was packed, reporters, cameras, faces she recognized and faces she didn't. Victor sat at the defense table, his lawyers flanking him like guards, his eyes boring into her with pure hatred. She didn't look away. Mrs. Chambers, the prosecutor, a sharp-eyed woman named Rebecca Torres, approached the stand. Can you describe your marriage to Victor Crane? Eleanor took a deep breath, and then she told them everything. The first time he hit her 6 months after the wedding because she'd overcooked the roast. The escalation from slaps to punches to kicks to weapons. The isolation cutting her off from friends, family, anyone who might have helped. The gaslighting convincing her she was crazy, unstable, imagining things. She told them about the broken bones and the hospital visits and the lies she'd told to protect him. About the night he'd held a pillow over her face until she passed out. About the morning she'd finally found the courage to run. And she told them about Pine Ridge, about Stone, about the brothers who'd ridden to her rescue, and the community that had embraced her, and the life she'd built from the ashes of everything Victor had destroyed. When she finished, the courtroom was silent. Victor's lead lawyer stood for cross-examination. He was good, expensive, polished, relentless. He tried every trick to discredit her, called her memory into question, suggested she was exaggerating, implied that Stone and his biker gang had coached her testimony. Eleanor didn't flinch. "Mr. Howard," she said, her voice steady as stone, "I spent 25 years being told I was a liar, being told I was crazy, being told that no one would ever believe me." She met Victor's eyes across the courtroom. "I'm done being told who I am. I know the truth. The jury will know the truth, and no amount of expensive lawyering is going to change that." The defense had no further questions. The verdict came on a Thursday. Eleanor stood in the courtroom, hands clasped, heart pounding. Stone's fingers were intertwined with hers, squeezing so tight she could feel his pulse. The jury foreman rose. "On the count of attempted murder, we find the defendant guilty." A murmur swept through the courtroom. "On the count of kidnapping, we find the defendant guilty." Victor's face went pale. "On the count of arson, we find the defendant guilty." One of Victor's lawyers whispered frantically in his ear. Victor shoved him away. "On the count of domestic assault, we find the defendant guilty." The foreman continued through the charges: fraud, bribery, intimidation, conspiracy. Guilty on every count, every single one. By the time he finished, Victor Crane was facing 4 consecutive life sentences with no possibility of parole. Eleanor watched as the guards led him away. He twisted in their grip, trying to catch her eye, trying to say something, but the words were lost in the chaos of the courtroom. She didn't need to hear them anyway. "It's over." Stone's voice was rough with emotion. "Eleanor, it's really over." She turned to face him, this man who'd walked through fire for her, who'd assembled an army to protect her, who'd loved her when she'd forgotten how to love herself. "Thank you," she said. "For what? For seeing me, for believing me, for standing beside me when everyone else ran away." Stone smiled, that rare, full smile that transformed his weathered face. "I'd do it again in a heartbeat." "I know." She rose on her toes, pressing a kiss to his lips. "That's why I love you." The celebration that night was unlike anything Pine Ridge had ever seen. Someone had rented out the old community hall. Someone else had strung lights and hung banners. The brothers arrived on their motorcycles, engines roaring in triumph, leather jackets gleaming in the setting sun. Eleanor stood at the center of it all, surrounded by people who'd become family. Ruth fussing over the food table. Jimmy and Carlos teaching Katie Morrison's kids how to play poker with candy for chips. Big Mike dancing awkwardly with a woman Eleanor didn't recognize, but who seemed thoroughly charmed. And Stone, the always Stone, his arm around her waist, his presence a constant warmth at her side. "Speech," someone shouted. "Speech, speech." Eleanor shook her head, but Stone was already nudging her toward a raised platform at the front of the hall. "Go on," he murmured. "They need to hear it from you." She climbed the steps on shaky legs, turning to face the crowd. So many faces, so many stories, so many people who'd helped her when she had no right to expect help. "I don't really do speeches," she began, and scattered laughter rippled through the room. "But I guess I owe you all something. So here goes." She took a deep breath. 5 years ago, I came to Pine Ridge with nothing. No money, no friends, no hope. I'd spent 25 years in a prison I couldn't see, trapped by a man who convinced me I was worthless. Her voice caught. "And then I met all of you." Ruth wiped tears from her eyes. Jimmy nodded solemnly. "You didn't know my story, didn't know what I was running from, but you took me in anyway. You gave me a bow and a purpose and a reason to get out of bed in the morning. You showed me what community looks like, what family looks like." She found Stone in the crowd, his blue eyes shining. "And then Victor came back, and I really thought it was over, that everything I'd built would crumble, that I'd have to run again, start over again, spend the rest of my life looking over my shoulder." The room was silent now, every face turned toward her. "But you didn't let that happen." Stone called his brothers, and they came. 100 men riding from across the country to protect a woman they'd never met. Her voice broke. Do you understand how incredible that is? Do you understand what that meant to someone who'd spent decades believing she wasn't worth protecting? Tears were flowing freely now, hers Ruth's half the room's. Victor wanted me to believe I was alone, that no one cared, that I deserved everything he did to me. Eleanor's chin lifted. He was wrong. About all of it. And today he's going to spend the rest of his life paying for that mistake. Cheers erupted. Someone started clapping. The sound swelled until the walls seemed to shake with it. Eleanor held up her hand, waiting for quiet. I'm not telling you this for sympathy. I'm telling you because there's someone out there right now, probably a lot of someone's, who feels the way I felt. Trapped, hopeless, convinced that no one will believe them, that no one will help them, that they deserve what's happening to them. She leaned forward, her voice fierce. You don't. Whatever they told you, whatever they made you believe, you don't deserve it. And you're not alone. You're never alone. There's a whole world of people who will fight for you, stand with you, believe you when you're ready to speak. Her eyes swept the crowd. So speak. Find your voice, tell your story, because the only way these monsters win is if we stay silent. And I'm done being silent. The room exploded. People surged forward, hugging her, shaking her hand, sharing their own stories in broken whispers. Women who'd survived what she'd survived. Men who'd watched their mothers or sisters suffer. Families torn apart by violence, and now somehow finding hope in her words. Stone found her an hour later, tucked into a quiet corner, overwhelmed and exhausted, and happier than she'd ever been. You okay? I think so. She leaned into him, letting his strength hold her up. It's a lot. It's everything. He kissed the top of her head. You just gave a lot of people permission to save themselves. I hope so. I know so. He tilted her chin up, his eyes soft. Eleanor Chambers, you are the most remarkable woman I've ever known. Even when I'm being reckless. Especially then. He grinned. Keeps things interesting. She laughed, the sound bubbling up from somewhere deep and true. What happens now? Whatever we want. Stone pulled a small velvet box from his pocket. Although I had a few ideas, Eleanor's heart stopped. Stone? I know it's fast. I know we've only known each other a few months. I know I'm a broken down old biker with more past than future. He opened the box, revealing a simple silver ring set with a single blue stone. But I also know that I love you more than I've ever loved anything. And I know that I want to spend whatever time I've got left making you happy. Tears blurred her vision. Eleanor Chambers, will you marry me? She couldn't speak, couldn't breathe, could only stare at this impossible man who'd crashed into her life and turned everything upside down in the best possible way. Yes. The word came out as a whisper, then louder. Yes, yes, absolutely yes. Stone's face split into the widest smile she'd ever seen. He slid the ring onto her finger, then swept her into his arms, lifting her off the ground and spinning her around while the crowd erupted in fresh cheers. I love you, he said against her lips. I love you too. She kissed him deeply, thoroughly, not caring who was watching. Now put me down before you throw out your back. Fair point. He set her down gently, keeping one arm wrapped around her waist like he couldn't bear to let her go. Around them, the celebration swirled on music and laughter, and the thunder of voices raised in joy. Ruth appeared, mascara streaking down her cheeks. About damn time. You knew, honey, the whole town knew. That man's been carrying that ring around for weeks. Ruth grabbed Eleanor's hand, examining the stone. Beautiful. He's got good taste. In rings or in women? Both. Jimmy pushed through the crowd, Carlos and Big Mike in tow. Congratulations, brother. You finally did something right. Thanks, I think. When's the wedding? Stone looked at Eleanor. Whenever she wants. Spring, Eleanor said immediately. When everything's blooming and new. When it feels like the whole world is starting over. Spring it is. More congratulations, more hugs, more champagne than Eleanor had seen in her entire life. The party continued until well past midnight, until even the most dedicated celebrants began drifting home. Finally, blessedly, Eleanor and Stone found themselves alone on the community hall steps, watching the stars emerge above Pine Ridge. Hell of a day, Stone observed. Hell of a year. Hell of a life. He pulled her close, his chin resting on top of her head. You know what's funny? I spent 58 years thinking I didn't deserve happiness, thinking the things I'd done made me unworthy of love. And now I think maybe that was the point. All of it, the mistakes, the violence, the years I wasted, maybe it was all leading here, to you, to this moment. Eleanor turned in his arms, looking up at his weathered face. You really believe that? I believe that second chances exist. I believe people can change. And I believe, his voice roughened, I believe that loving you is the best thing I've ever done. She kissed him soft and sweet, tasting tears and champagne, and forever. Take me home, she whispered. Which home? The cabin, Ruth's spare room. Eleanor smiled. Anywhere you are. That's home. They walked into the night together, hands intertwined, hearts full. Behind them, Pine Ridge settled into peaceful darkness. Ahead, the road stretched, endless and unknown. But Eleanor wasn't afraid anymore. She'd spent 63 years learning how to survive. Now, finally, she was ready to live. 1 year later, the shelter unveiled its new wing. The Eleanor Chambers Center for Domestic Violence Survivors stood proud and bright at the end of Main Street, a beacon for anyone who needed help, funded by donations from across the country and staffed by people who understood what it meant to escape. Eleanor cut the ribbon herself, Stone beaming at her side. The brothers lined up behind them like an honor guard. Cameras flashed, reporters shouted questions. Somewhere in the crowd, Ruth was crying happy tears for the 100th time that month. This center isn't just a building, Eleanor said, her voice carrying clear and strong. It's a promise that no one has to face their darkest moments alone. A promise that help exists, that hope exists, that there's always a way out, even when you can't see it. She looked at Stone, at Jimmy, at all the faces that had become family. I know because I lived it. I was trapped for 25 years, convinced I was worthless, certain I would die in that prison. But I got out. I found my voice. I found my people. Her smile widened. I found my person. Stone's arm tightened around her waist. So, if you're watching this, if you're stuck in your own prison, if you've given up hope, please hear me. You are not alone. You are not worthless. You deserve love and safety and a life that doesn't hurt. She took a deep breath. And if you need someone to believe in you, to fight for you, to stand beside you when everything falls apart, come find us. We'll be here. We'll always be here. The crowd erupted. Eleanor stepped, not back from the microphone, overwhelmed by the applause, the tears, the overwhelming rightness of this moment. Stone pulled her into his arms. Proud of you. He murmured, I couldn't have done it without you. Yes, you could. You just didn't have to. She laughed, burying her face in his shoulder. I love you, Gunnar McAllister. I love you too, Eleanor McAllister. The name still felt new. They had been married 3 months now. A small ceremony in Stone's cabin, with only the brothers and Ruth in attendance. But it was hers, truly hers. A name she'd chosen, attached to a life she'd built. Katie Morrison approached with her children, both of them taller, now healthier, happier than Eleanor had ever seen them. Mrs. McAllister, Katie's voice was thick with emotion. I don't know how to thank you for everything. You saved us. You saved yourselves, Eleanor corrected. I just showed you the door. And you kept showing up every day, no matter what. Katie hugged her tight. You're my hero. You know that? Eleanor felt tears prick her eyes. Then be someone else's. That's how we honor the help we've received, by passing it on. Katie nodded, wiping her cheeks. I will. I promise. The celebration continued into the evening. Food appeared, music started, and somehow the ribbon cutting transformed into a full-blown community party. Children ran between the legs of leather-clad bikers. Volunteers from the shelter danced with city council members. Ruth held court at a corner table, telling anyone who would listen about her Eleanor and the incredible journey that had brought them here. As the sun set, Stone led Eleanor away from the crowd down a quiet path to a bench overlooking the town. Remember when you first came to Pine Ridge? He asked. I was terrified, jumping at shadows, convinced Victor would find me any second. And now, Eleanor looked out at the town that had become her home, at the shelter she'd helped build, at the life she'd created from nothing. Now I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be. Stone took her hand, running his thumb over her wedding ring. I've been thinking about the future, he said. Jimmy's talking about opening another chapter of the support network in Billings. Carlos wants to start a mentorship program for at-risk youth. Big Mike, he chuckled. Big Mike wants to learn to cook. And you, Uyo, me, Stone's eyes met hers. I want to grow old with you. Want to wake up every morning and thank whatever God exists that I found you. Want to spend whatever years I've got left making sure you never doubt, not for one single second, that you are loved and valued and worth fighting for. Eleanor leaned into him, feeling his heartbeat against her shoulder. That sounds perfect. Yeah, yeah. They sat together as darkness fell, watching the stars emerge one by one. In the distance, the celebration continued, music and laughter, and the rumble of motorcycle engines that had once meant danger but now meant home. Eleanor thought about the woman she used to be, the scared, broken creature who'd fled Montana with nothing but a suitcase and a prayer. The woman who'd believed she was worthless, unlovable, destined to die alone. That woman was gone now. In her place stood someone new, someone stronger, someone who had stared down her demons and won. Eleanor Chambers McAllister, survivor, fighter, wife, friend, hero. Not because she'd been brave, though she had been, not because she'd been strong, though she was, but because she'd refused to give up, because she'd kept fighting even when everything seemed lost, because she'd found the courage to tell her story, and in doing so had given countless others permission to tell theirs. The past would always be part of her. The scars, the memories, the lessons learned in blood and tears. But they didn't define her anymore. They were just chapters in a larger story, a story that was still being written one beautiful day at a time. Eleanor, Stone's voice was soft. What are you thinking about? She smiled, turning to face the man who had shown her what real love looked like. I'm thinking about how lucky I am, how grateful, she laughed, how ridiculously, impossibly happy. Good. He kissed her forehead. That's exactly how it should be. They walked back to the celebration hand in hand, ready to face whatever came next, ready to help the next person who needed saving, ready to live the life they'd fought so hard to build. Because in the end, that's what survival was really about. Not just enduring, but thriving. Not just escaping, but building something beautiful from the wreckage. Eleanor had spent 63 years learning that lesson. And now, finally, she was living it. The shelter's lights blazed behind them. Music swelled. Laughter echoed through the night. And Eleanor Chambers, McAllister wife survivor, warrior, stepped into her future without fear. Because she was no longer a victim. She was no longer running. She was free. And nothing, no one would ever take that away from her again.